Chapter 8:24. Needless to say, although Love to Work Hard to Win was only a Hokkien song, its beautiful melody and positive lyrics expressed the spirit of working hard. It would become the most suitable song for the theme song of the Limit Challenge in people's hearts, and it was also liked by many fans. However, the singing of this song also represented the end of the first season of the Limit Challenge. How could the fans bear to part with it? They ran to the official website and the 6 members' micro-broadcasting accounts overnight. They even ran to Yang Yi's micro-broadcasting account to urge the second season to return as soon as possible. However, this could only be a fantasy. The next season of the Limit Challenge would have to wait until the spring of next year. September quietly arrived. The end of the summer vacation also heralded the beginning of a new school year. Batch after batch of new students would also step into their primary school, middle school, and even university. The teachers of Huijia Primary School also returned to school early. Among them, the teachers of the first grade who were preparing to welcome the new students, especially the teachers who were also the form teachers, had already received the list of children in their classes. Li Ruolin was the form teacher of the first grade's class 3. She casually glanced at the list and prepared to go back to write the script for her speech to the parents. After all, she was still very young. She was only about 28 years old this year. She had been a teacher and form teacher for 2 years, but it was her first time leading a new class. She still needed to prepare. "Teacher Li, is there a child named Yangxi in your class?" At this time, the form teacher of class 2, who was also Li Ruolin's good friend, Lu Xianxian, came over and asked with a smile. "Wait, let me see." Li Ruolin had no choice but to pick up the list again and ask casually, "Why are you suddenly asking about this?" Without waiting for Lu Xianxian to answer, Li Ruolin found the name Yang Xi in the last row. "Yes, in my class there's a girl. What's wrong? Is she an acquaintance of yours?" "No." At that time, Teacher Kai, who was in charge of invigilating the exam, said that this Yang Xi was a genius. It was probably because her family taught her well. Anyway, Teacher Kai felt ashamed after hearing her English. In addition, it was said that she also knew Swedish. Lu Xianxian said with a face full of gossip, "Fortunately, you're a Chinese teacher. Although I'm also teaching your class, I'm a math teacher. I'm not worried about having a lot of pressure." "So amazing. Really?" Li Ruolin was a little surprised. "I'm a dog if I lie to you." Lu Xianxian laughed. Li Ruolin felt a burst of joy in her heart. There was an outstanding student in her class who could produce results. Any teacher who knew about it would be happy. Lu Xianxian was still gossiping. "Hey, what kind of family can raise such an amazing child? TSK, they can even speak Swedish. Is their family a diplomat family? You'll know when school starts." Li Ruolin laughed. Yang Xiaoxi, who had been noticed by the teacher, did not appear to be a genius at this moment. "Papa, Papa, push me higher." The little girl's bell-like laughter echoed in the courtyard. She also floated back and forth in the air. Her long hair swung up and down like the unfolding of clouds. It was extremely beautiful. She is playing on the swing in the yard. Yesterday, Yang Yi went to the Sahara Publishing House and passed by the children's play area specially prepared by the Sahara Publishing House for young parents and authors who came to train. With Yang Yi's current status, he naturally could not help but stop and watch. A few children swinging happily on the swing made Yang Yi suddenly have the idea of installing a swing at home. It just so happened that the materials were ready-made. There was also a spare children's swing in the warehouse of the Sahara Publishing House, so Yang Yi moved it back. As soon as it was installed this morning, she could not wait to sit on it, and asked her father to push her on the swing. She liked the feeling of swinging high, and then quickly swinging down. "Higher? No, if it goes any higher, you'll fly out." Yang Yi walked to Shishi's side and pointed to the distant sky with a smile. He said to her, "Do you see that? When the time comes, you'll fly into outer space." He. The little girl did not know if she was amused by her father's humor, or if she was enjoying the joy of playing on the swing, but she could not stop laughing. On the side, Steamed Bun also excitedly jumped around on the swing. He did not dare to go up, and could only run back and forth on the side. He also had a lot of fun. When Shishi was tired from laughing, She jumped down from the swing and followed her father home with unsteady steps. In the living room, the castle was still standing. However, compared to Murphy's crude and illegal building yesterday, the castle was now very beautiful. Yang especially bought a batch of good-looking pillows and stacked them up like sandbags. She also participated in the reconstruction of the castle last night. She excitedly brought over many dolls from her room, big and small, to help decorate the castle with vitality. However, Tong Tong had the heart to break out of prison. When Yang Yi and the others came back, the little boy stood up on the wall again. His legs were still trembling. When he saw the movement at the door, he happily stretched out his little hand and eagerly called, "Baba." It seemed that he could not change his pronunciation in a short time. Unfortunately, he could not call his father, but he could call his sister. "Little brother, I'll play with you." Cece, on the other hand, ran over excitedly. With a light step of her long legs, she jumped in and rolled behind little Swanee. Tong Tong could not support himself and sat down again. However, he was already used to this feeling and did not cry or make a fuss. He just turned his head and stared at his sister with his big eyes. No one knew what he was thinking. Papa, little brother broke the book. She saw a book that had been destroyed by Tong Tong behind Tong Tong. She, who liked to preserve every item, cried out in alarm and complained to her father. The little girl felt sorry for this book. Although this book was published by Sahara Publishing House for children, it was full of childish pictures. She could not bear to look at it, but she still sat up and carefully smoothed out the crumpled pages with her small hands. Tong Tong had crushed the book. Tong Tong looked at it in a daze. Of course, he did not understand what it meant, and his eyes were full of confusion. Yang Yi just looked at it, and did not say anything. He brought back a batch of sample books from the publishing house for Tong Tong and Shi to read. In fact, he did not expect Tong Tong to love these books as much as his sister. Tong Tong was less than a year old, so it was impossible for him to love books. These picture books were just for him to read and feel fresh. This was the original purpose of these books. Just like Tong Tong's toys, the little guy would always clumsily break some of them as he grew up. When he grew up, he would even eliminate most of them. It was impossible for him to keep them as treasures. Of course, Yang Yi did not stop Shi from helping her brother organize these books. He liked watching the interaction between the siblings. When Shi organized the books and showed concern for her brother, Yang Yi felt very gratified. However, Shi was about to go to primary school, so she would not have much time to play with her brother at home. Chapter 8:25. The day of registration had finally arrived. Shi had been looking forward to it. The little girl had thought that going to primary school would be the same as going to kindergarten. Early in the morning, she carried her little bag energetically, waiting for her father to bring her to meet her little friends. The little girl had also been dolled up by her mother today. Not only did she wear her favorite little white dress, she even tied her hair into a double-layered princess hairstyle. Paired with the dress, Shi looked exceptionally fresh and adorable. However, there was only one chance to dress like this, because after registering for school and collecting the school uniform, Shi would not be able to wear her beautiful clothes to school in the future. "Why are you in such a hurry to carry your bag? Xian Air and her mother aren't here yet. Give the bag to Daddy." Yang Yi was still worried that the straps of the new bag would hurt his daughter's little shoulders, so he wanted to help her carry it. However, Shi giggled and ran off with her little bag, unwilling to put it down. "Daddy, you haven't made me lunch yet." The little girl suddenly remembered that last time, her father had not given her a lunchbox, and she had almost gone hungry in kindergarten. "This morning, we can go home after registering for school, collecting our books and uniforms, and meeting your teachers and classmates. There's no need to eat in school." Yang Yi said, "Oh right, you don't have to bring food to school in the future, because Huijia Primary School has a cafeteria. After school starts, listen to the teacher's arrangements at noon and gather in school to eat the school food and rest. When school ends in the afternoon, Daddy will come and pick you up." Shi listened blankly, and did not have much of a reaction. She felt that there was no difference. Wasn't it just eating in school? After a while, Wu Jingjing brought over a similarly freshly dressed Lan Xian. During this time, Lan's Hao Kai had been on a business trip again, but it was not for business matters. As one of the richest men in Jiangcheng, he also had a bit of a political identity, so he had to follow some business people representing Jiangcheng to a meeting in Beijing. Boss Lan really couldn't get away from this kind of thing. He could only regretfully miss the important day of his daughter's primary school. Yang Yi drove the larger nanny van. Of course, Xixi and Lan Xian sat together. Wu Jingjing and Murphy also sat together. They chatted and laughed as they teased Tong Tong. In contrast, Yang Yi, who was quietly driving in front, looked like a real chauffeur. However, when Wu Jingjing and Murphy were gossiping, they still had to ask Yang Yi. Yang Yi, I heard from Laolan that the 5 kids are not in the same class. Only Xixi and Xian Air are in the same class, right? Wu Jingjing asked. Yes, I was looking for someone to help, but they said that it was difficult to arrange for the 5 kids. They could only try to arrange for Xixi and Xian Air to be in the same class. Yang Yi said, one of the school board members personally called to explain to me that if the kids are all in the same class when they go to primary school, it will not be good for their growth. If the 5 kids play together wherever they go, it will be easy for them to isolate the other students, and it will be easy for them to be isolated by the other students. Children of this age should make more friends. I think it makes sense. Murphy nodded and said to Wu Jingjing, I think so too. When they reach primary school, they should broaden their circle of friends. Moreover, even if they are not in the same class, as long as they are in the same school, I think they can still play together often. I don't care. Laolan said that Xian Air only needs to be in the same class as Xixi. He doesn't care about the others. Wu Jingjing smiled and said, I'm just curious how the other parents will react when they know. Like Wu Yu and teacher Nan. Although Wu Jingjing said this in private, it still seemed a little utilitarian and a little cruel, but it was normal. Who wouldn't want their children to be good? You can't expect everyone to be universal. The other 3 families all expressed their understanding of the situation. They didn't even care about the problem of not being in the same class. They also thought about their own children. Only their own children could get a good education. Why would they care about other children's situation? The world of adults was a little complicated, but the world of children was much simpler. After Xixi arrived at school, she opened her eyes wide and looked around for her friends. Huijia Primary School reported today. It was very crowded and lively. Looking for someone here was like looking for a needle in a haystack. However, Xixi still found Yang Luoqi. She and Yang Luoqi held hands and jumped happily. Cici, my mother said that I'm in class 6. We're not in the same class. After Yang Luoqi was happy, she remembered this and looked at Cici with a sad expression. I am in class 3. Xian Air is also in class 3. But my dad said that it doesn't matter if we are not in the same class because we are very close to each other. I can go to your class and play with you. Xixi said cheerfully. Then if we are not in the same class, are we still good friends? Yang Luoqi asked nervously. 100 of us are good friends. Xixi stretched out her 2 little hands and innocently gestured. She originally wanted to say 100%. This was a new word she learned from her dad. However, Xixi didn't understand what 100% meant, so she pretended to know and changed it. Hee, 100 of us are good friends. Yang Luoqi got the confirmation and became happy again. However, she also didn't understand the meaning of 100. She just thought that it was very funny, so she grabbed Xixi's hand and laughed. Murphy and Wu Jingjing, who were wearing sunglasses, stood quietly on the side, watching the children play. Yang Yi went to help them get the books and uniforms. However, Murphy and the others' peace was soon broken. Isn't this Mo Fei? A pleasantly surprised voice came over. The source of the voice was a young mother in her 20s. She was walking with her child and inadvertently saw Murphy wearing sunglasses. Originally, her attention was on her son, so she didn't recognize Murphy at first glance. However, Murphy was tall. She was taller than Wu Jingjing even without wearing high heels. Even if she wore sunglasses to disguise herself, her image and temperament seemed out of place among ordinary mothers. How could there be a mother who was so beautiful and elegant? How could there be a mother who had such a cold temperament, but looked so elegant? Everyone loved beauty. including women. She couldn't help but look at Mofe again. Maybe she just wanted to ask for some advice from Mofe on how to make up. But she didn't expect that she would recognize Mofe at first glance. Murphy was a little surprised. She turned her head to look at the other party. It's really you. Murphy, I'm your fan. I bought all your albums and CDs. The young mother was so excited that she forgot about her son. She took a step forward and whispered in embarrassment. Chapter 826. Fortunately, this mommy fan was still a reasonable fan. After expressing her excitement, she took into consideration that her son was watching from behind. She did not want to appear too infatuated, so she blushed and asked Murphy if she could take a photo with her. Murphy looked around and realized that their actions did not attract too much attention. She smiled faintly and agreed to the fan's request. But please don't make it public. I understand. She nodded excitedly. She took out her phone and said, I won't tell anyone. I don't want to affect you. Will you help to take the photo? The mommy fan was not satisfied with the photo she took with Murphy. She even dragged her son to take a photo with Murphy. Sai, I really didn't expect to meet you here. I didn't even bring a pen and paper. Otherwise, I would have asked for your autograph. Sai, I really like your songs. I even bought your latest song, Diamonds. The mommy fan said emotionally as she held onto her phone. As she spoke, she unknowingly started to address Murphy respectfully. It's my honor to be liked by all of you. Murphy looked at such a cute fan and was actually quite touched. She gave her a big hug and said gently, It's not that. It's mainly because your songs are good. I've had the dream of being a singer since I was young, but that dream did not come true in the end. Now I really like your songs. You sing so well. The mommy fan said emotionally. If you like singing, you can participate in China's Top Voice. Murphy said kindly. Although this season's audition has ended, you can still practice and try to participate in next year's audition. Don't give up if you have a dream. Give it a try. The mommy fan waved her hand embarrassedly and said with a smile, How can I do that? Actually, it's just a thought. I don't sing well. My friends all say that it's fine if I sing well. If I don't sing well, I'll be a microphone hog every time I go to the KTV. Murphy was stunned for a moment. She could only smile awkwardly and politely. Mom, my hair is a little messy here. Help me fix it. At this moment, Shishi, who was chatting with her friends, ran over. She pointed to the fluffy hair on the back of her head and said in a crisp voice, This is Shishi. The mother fans were pleasantly surprised again. Of course she could recognize Shishi. Only now did she realize what was going on. That's right. Today was Huijia Primary School's enrollment day. If Murphy didn't come here for her child's enrollment, what else could she be here for? Of course, now that Tong Tong was in Wu Jingjing's arms, she did not notice it. Otherwise, she would be even more excited. It was only then that she saw this unfamiliar auntie. With her mother's reminder, she snuggled up to her mother and called out obediently, Hello, auntie. Hello, Shishi. The mother fan's eyes lit up like light bulbs. She looked at Shishi as if she was looking at her own daughter-in-law. She was inexplicably happy and said, Hey Murphy, Shishi is really the same as in the photos. She's so beautiful, well-behaved and sensible. No, you don't know how mischievous she is usually. Murphy was like most mothers. Although she was happy in her heart, she was still very embarrassed to belittle her child. I'm not mischievous. Shishi disagreed. Fortunately, the mother fan still had to take her son to collect his books. She reluctantly said goodbye to Murphy. Our Dabao is so lucky to be in the same school as your child. Murphy could only respond with a smile. When she left, she looked back 3 times with every step she took. Once was to look at Murphy, and twice was to look at Shishi. This mother fans did not leave a deep impression on Yang Yi and Murphy. They were already used to bumping into fans like this. However, when Yang Yi came back with his books and school uniform, he felt that he had been a little negligent when he heard Murphy's words. Why don't you and mommy go back to the car first? After Shishi finishes her class meeting, I'll take her to meet you guys. Yang Yi smiled and said, Anyway, I heard from others that many parents have to stand outside during the class meeting. There can't be too many parents sitting inside. It's not convenient for you and Mommy to be crowded inside. Murphy did not have any objections. She accompanied Shishi to register, which could be considered as fulfilling one of her wishes. There was no need to accompany her throughout the whole process. Murphy let Yang-yi carry Tong Tong. She squatted down and smiled as she tidied up her daughter's little skirt. She said gently, Shishi, Mama's waiting for you outside. You're a primary school student from today onwards. You have to behave well. I know. Shishi was still immersed in the lively atmosphere of the new environment, so she responded crisply. The little girl looked at her mother with big eyes that were like clear autumn ripples. Under the bright morning sun, they were crystal clear and translucent. As her gaze moved, it added a bit of liveliness. Yang Yi's face was not so easily recognized. After he found a seat for Shishi in the classroom, he walked to the back of the classroom and stood with the other parents. There were many people, so it was somewhat crowded. Yang Yi smiled and nodded at others in a friendly manner, but no one called out his name. Only one person from your family came? There was also a slightly older uncle parent who asked with concern. Didn't the child's mother come? She came. Seeing that there was not enough space, I asked her to go back to the car and wait. We have a little one, so we can't take care of her. Yang Yi responded with a smile. Although it was the first time they had met, they would be the parents of their children's classmates in the future, so they still greeted each other warmly. My surname is Wang, and my name is Wang Hongwei. The boy with a crew cut sitting on the left of the third row in the second row is my son. The uncle stretched out his hand. When he introduced his son, his face was flushed. What's your surname? Now that Yang Yi's personality had been thoroughly honed, he could integrate into the world of ordinary people. Since the uncle had introduced himself in such a friendly manner, Yang Yi did not stand out. He shook the uncle's hand and smiled. My surname is Yang. My daughter is from my family. Yang Yi did not introduce Shishi to the uncle. Boys forget it. Adults had their own social interactions, and children had their own children's world. Shishi sat quietly in her seat for less than a minute. She could not help but move her little butt and turn around to look at her father. Although her father did not pay attention to her and was chatting with others, Shishi did not mind. She saw that her father was not far behind her, so she calmed down and curiously looked at the desk and classroom. The classroom of an elementary school was completely different from that of a kindergarten. The classroom of a kindergarten was free. The desks could be moved, arranged neatly, or formed into a circle. Most of the time, the teachers would only bring the children to play games in the open space. However, the desks in an elementary school were arranged neatly in 4 rows and 8 columns. Moreover, most of the desks and chairs were made of cool iron. The desks were higher, and so were the chairs, which were more suitable for sitting upright and writing. There were lockers at the back of the classroom, and there was also a large blackboard with the blackboard of the previous class. There was also a large blackboard and a podium in front of the classroom. Shishi felt that these were all very new, because in the kindergarten, the blackboard was not fixed to the wall. Shishi looked left and right, and along the way, she looked at the new classmates around her. Not to mention Lon Xian, who was sitting next to her. The other classmates all had different expressions. Although everyone was dressed up neatly and beautifully, not everyone was as interested in school as Shishi. Some children could not sit still and ran to the back, crying and begging their parents to take them home. Of course, they were quickly dragged back, and could only stay in their seats and wipe their tears. There were also some children who could not sit still. They ran around the seats and shouted, as if they were very familiar with the friends they had just met. In contrast, Lon Xian was much calmer. She was neither happy nor sad. She sat in her chair casually, like a miniature version of Lance Hao Kai. The little girl was bored for a while, then suddenly turned her head and whispered to Shishi. Shishi, do you have anything delicious to eat? I'm hungry. Shishi blinked her big eyes, shook her head and said, Papa said that we don't have to bring lunch to school. In fact, Lon Xian just felt bored and wanted to eat snacks to pass the time. However, they did not have a chance to continue talking. They heard the bell ring, and the female teacher who was talking to some parents outside the classroom just now came in. Shishi and Lon Xian, who had received a good education in Springfield kindergarten, reacted and sat up straight. Their small waists were straight, and they obediently put their small hands on their legs. Chapter 8:27. The campus, which had been noisy just now, gradually quieted down with the sound of the bell. If one was a little further away from the teaching buildings, one could feel that the entire campus seemed to have returned to the seclusion of the holidays at some point. The sun at the end of summer and the beginning of autumn baked the earth. The weeds in the green belt hung their heads lazily, and the leaves that were gradually turning yellow withered listlessly between the branches. When the wind blew, the rustling sound between the leaves was not as clear as before. The pavilion also quieted down, leaving only scattered bottles and paper. These were the remains of the chaos from before. However, in each teaching building, it was another scene. It was as if the vitality of the entire school had gathered together. The cute little fellows sat in rows, their bright eyes filled with curiosity and anticipation for the future. Li Ruolin walked into the classroom with a smile. When she saw the children who had been quite obedient on the first day, she could not help but feel a surge of enthusiasm in her heart. In the next 6 years, I will witness the growth of these children. Although Li Ruolin believed that the obedience and quietness of these little fellows would not last long, she still liked these little cuties very much. They were all pure and ignorant pieces of white paper. Teaching them, compared to the 5th and 6th grade children she had taught before, could stimulate the teacher's sense of accomplishment. "Hello, children." Li Ruolin put down the things in her hands and greeted the children with a smile. "Hello, teacher." The response was sparse. Some of the children did not know how to respond, and the children who knew how to respond responded in unison. Li Ruolin did not care. She wrote her name on the blackboard and kindly asked the children to call her Teacher Li. While Li Ruolin was introducing herself and telling them about her beautiful wishes for the new semester, she was also looking around the classroom. Her gaze gently fell on the faces of each child one by one, letting them feel her attention. "This child is so beautiful." When Li Ruolin saw Shishi with red lips, white teeth and picturesque features, she could not help but praise her in her heart. "She's so delicate and lovely at such a young age. When she grows up, won't she be devastatingly beautiful?" However, Li Ruolin was still more curious about the genius girl that she could not forget, Yangshi. After looking around, Li Ruolin found a Yangshi that matched the image in her mind. A quiet little girl with glasses sitting on the far left of the second row. This was an interesting guessing game. Li Ruolin was very curious if she had guessed correctly. "Next, Teacher Li will read out the names of the children in our class. How about this? Let's make an agreement." When the teacher calls out a child's name, the child whose name is called has to shout and stand up, "Okay? Teacher wants to recognize each of your names and appearances," Li Ruolin said with a smile. "Okay." At this moment, the children's response was much louder. There were also some who were in a daze and did not respond. Their parents behind them looked anxious and wanted to answer for them. Li Ruolin began to read out the names. Chao Ruolin. Here. The first name that was read out received a clear response. However, Li Ruolin was a little embarrassed because she saw that the girl who stood up and shouted was the quiet little girl who wore glasses at such a young age. "She's not young, she," Li Ruolin muttered in her heart. However, she did not delay on the surface. She still praised her with a smile. "Very good." Chao Ruolin reacted very quickly. Moreover, she stood up according to the teacher's instructions. She performed very well. Everyone should learn from Chao Ruolin. The girl with glasses named Chao Ruolin was still standing. Her face was red. She did not know if she was shy or excited after being praised by the teacher. She did not dare to move until the teacher reminded her. Only then did she sit down. Of course, Li Ruolin's roll call was not just to confirm her guess. She also wanted to recognize the students in the class, so that she could call out their names in the subsequent lessons. A string of names was read down. Lan Exine was called, but it was not Shishi's turn for a long time. The little girl was a little restless in her seat. Why didn't the teacher call my name? Shishi's little head was very confused. Her little hand was placed on the table. She had been ready to raise it for a long time. Shishi could not help but turn her head back to look at her father. However, this time, she saw her father's fingers gesturing, one circle after another. What did Papa mean? Yang Yi was telling Shishi to turn back and listen to the teacher carefully. She could not look around. However, Shishi, who had been troubled by the fact that her name had not been called, did not have time to think. She could not understand. Wang Lele. At this time, Yang Yi was also interrupted. Wang Hongwei, who had just talked to him, was pointing to his chest with some pride to his friends around him and saying, "My son, Wang Lele is my son." In fact, the teacher's name list was arranged according to the first letter of the pinyin of the surname. Shishi's surname was almost at the bottom, but since the teacher had already called out the Wang surname, it should be Shishi's turn soon. Finally, after a few children were called out, the name Yangshi was called out by Li Rulin with anticipation. Shishi had been waiting for a long time, so her reaction was naturally very fast. She stood up from her seat and called out in a clear voice, "Here." Li Rulin saw Shishi stand up and could not help but open her mouth in surprise. "It's actually her?" Li Rulin looked at Shishi's lively eyes and sighed in her heart. This child, how did their family raise her? She's beautiful and smart. Shishi stood up and also received the attention of the whole class. Of course, the little girl was also sized up by the parents behind her. Originally, Shishi did not stand out when she was sitting in her seat. Now that she stood up, her slender figure, beautiful clothes, and delicate face made her the focus of everyone's attention. TSK, this girl is amazing. Her family must be very good. She's been raised like a princess since she was young. Uncle Wang Hongwei was talking to Yang Yi again. He was so focused on bragging about his son that he did not remember that Yang Yi had introduced himself as a Yang. Yang Yi could only smile politely at the other party and did not reply. Of course, the parents only saw the back of Shishi. They only saw what Shishi's face looked like when she turned around to look for her father. However, even so, Shishi's height was still enough to shock many parents, including Li Rulin. Shishi, who was only 6 years old, was already 1.27 meters tall. Although she was still a little short of Lu Weisha's 1.3 meters compared to the students in the class who were generally 1.11 to 1.2 meters tall. Shishi was indeed much taller. Shishi was not used to being stared at by everyone in such a surprised manner. Moreover, she was more concerned about Teacher Li's evaluation of her. The little girl felt that her reaction was quite fast. Why didn't the teacher praise her at all? Li Rulin saw Shishi's anxious little eyes and realized that she had lost her composure. She quickly restrained her spirit and smiled. "Okay, thank you, Shishi. You did well too. You can sit down now. Continue to work hard in the future." Shishi finally sat down in satisfaction. This was only the first class meeting for the new students. Li Rulin did not delay for too long. After briefly explaining the teaching plan for this semester, and the content that required the parents' cooperation, the class meeting ended. "Goodbye, Teacher Li." The children also left one after another. Li Rulin stood at the door and said goodbye to each of the children. Her memory seemed to be quite good. After reciting the names just now, she could now call out the names of each child at the door. This instantly shortened the distance between her and the students. Some parents deliberately lingered behind. They wanted to find an opportunity to chat more with the form teacher, build a relationship, or try to fight for something for their children. Yang Yi, on the other hand, did not have such thoughts. He left with Cici early on. "Goodbye, Teacher Li." Shishi was still very obedient. Her father held her right hand. She waved with her left hand and said goodbye to the teacher. "Goodbye, Shishi." Li Rulin glanced at Yang Yi and smiled as she patted Shishi's little head. Li Rulin muttered in her heart, as expected, her father is also very tall and quite imposing. Could he be a diplomat? Thinking of this, Li Rulin could not help but smile at Yang Yi and say, "Yang Shi's father. Just call me Yang Yi." Yang Yi nodded at the other party. This name sounded a little familiar. Li Rulin had seen Yang Yi's name before. However, although she watched TV, she never chased after celebrities, so she did not recognize it. Now that she heard it, it sounded a little familiar. Li Rulin smiled and said, "Okay, Yang Yi. I've seen your daughter's report card." At that time, the invigilator gave a very high evaluation, and said that Yang Shi was very smart. Yang Yi was stunned for a moment. He put his big hand on his daughter's shoulder and said with a smile, "Is that so? Thank you for your compliment. But don't keep praising her like this. I'm afraid that her tail will curl up. Haha. It's okay. I believe that she will study hard in the future. She's a good child." Li Ruolin also laughed. Chapter 828. The parents and children left the school one after another. However, Li Ruolin and the other first-grade teachers were not able to rest yet. They still had a meeting in the afternoon. They had to set up a SNS parent group on the computer, inform the parents to join the group, and so on. There was a lot of work. How are the students in your class? Lu Xianxian and Li Ruolin worked at the same desk. She asked gossipily, "Have you seen that genius?" Li Ruolin nodded and smiled. "You definitely won't be able to guess what that Yang Shi looks like." "Sai, what can a 6 or 7-year-old child look like? Round head, round face, cute and innocent. Isn't everyone the same? You're still keeping me in suspense." Lu Xianxian curled her lips. Li Ruolin shook her head. "Just say it." Lu Xianxian helplessly replied. Her heart was being scratched by Su Tao's words. "She's really beautiful. Let me tell you. Her family must be a diplomat. Her family conditions must be very good. She raised a child. She's tall and beautiful. Her skin is so good that it can be broken by the wind," Li Ruolin said with some envy. "Moreover, she's quiet and obedient. Everyone loves her." F***ck. Lu Xianxian, the female hooligan, could not help but curse. "Smart and good-looking. Are you still giving others a way out? What can we do? Maybe the child has been drinking nutritious milk, without additives since she was young." Li Ruolin sighed. "That's true. Her family is a diplomat. They can get some good things." Lu Xianxian shook her head, indicating that she was not envious. Not at all. In the evening, Li Ruolin and Lu Xianxian finished their work and invited each other to go home together. Li Ruolin rode her electric scooter and slowly drove Lu Xianxian to the school gate. Electric scooters were also considered a characteristic of their old city area. As mentioned earlier, before the Wuhu district's renovation was completed, this scooter could not be completely banned. "Why is there a group of people at the gate?" Lu Xuanxuan's eyes were sharp as she muttered to Li Ruolin. "I don't know. Are they here to cause trouble?" Li Ruolin also felt strange. Their school had the best reputation among the private schools, and their management was also the strictest. Basically, outsiders were not allowed to enter, and the students were not allowed to fight or cause trouble. If there was, the lighter punishment would be to call the parents, and the heavier punishment would be to expel them directly. In addition, the quality of the students was generally very high. Huijia Primary School basically did not have any hooligans causing trouble at the school. When Li Ruolin's electric scooter passed, a security guard opened a small door and let them out. Only then did they hear the crowd arguing with the school's security guard. "It's a reporter." Li Ruolin drove carefully. She only inadvertently caught a glimpse of those people's cameras and knew their identities. "It's the reporters. I heard them shouting. It seems like they want to interview our freshman teachers." Lu Xianxian whispered into Li Ruolin's ear. "I think that if they treat me to a meal, I can consider answering a few of their questions." "Are you crazy? The school strictly forbids teachers from leaking student information to outsiders. If they find out, they will be expelled." Li Ruolin was shocked and said hurriedly. "Hee, I was just kidding. Don't be so serious." Lu Xianxian laughed indecently. "They are definitely not interviewing me. I just heard that there is a big star among the parents of the freshmen called Murphy. We don't have such a parent in our class." These reporters, or to be exact, paparazzi, were attracted by the photo of Murphy that the parent had posted. In the end, the mother fan could not hold back her excitement and sent the photo to micro-broadcasting. She also tagged Murphy's global fan club, which was spontaneously formed by the fans, on the micro-broadcasting account. Naturally, it was forwarded by them. Now the whole world knew that Murphy had brought Shishi to enroll in school. The paparazzi who were based in Jiangqing reacted a little slower, but they still managed to rush to Huijia Primary School at the last minute. We don't have such a parent in our class either. Li Ruolin laughed. We don't even have a student with the surname Mo in our class, let alone a star's parent. Lu Xianxian was similar to Li Ruolin. She liked to watch TV, but she never chased after celebrities. Therefore, when she heard Murphy's name, her reaction was not that strong. However, a woman's nature of gossip still made her take out her phone and search in the back seat. After a while, Lu Xianxian looked up with a strange expression. Teacher Li, the genius in your class is called Yang Shi. Did I remember wrongly? Yes, you told me at the beginning. Li Ruolin replied, puzzled. Her father, is he called Yang Yi? Lu Xuanxuan's expression became more and more strange. The tall and steady man's magnetic voice rang in Li Ruolin's mind. You can call me Yang Yi. Yes. How did you know? Li Ruolin asked in surprise. F***CK. The female hooligan cursed again, and also called Li Ruolin's nickname. Lon Lon, you've hit the jackpot. You even said that Murphy isn't the parent of your class. You mean? Murphy is a woman. She's a very famous female singer. She went on a foreign program not long ago and sang an English song. I even showed you that video. Li Ruolin had only seen the video of Murphy singing, and had never seen Murphy in person. However, she still connected the dots with Lu Xuanxuan's words and asked in surprise. You mean Yangxi is Murphy's daughter? Their residence was not far away. As they chatted, they soon arrived home. As soon as Li Ruolin's car stopped, Lu Xianxian could not wait to hand over her phone and said, Is this the smart and beautiful Yangxi you were talking about? Li Ruolin took it and recognized Xi in the photo at first glance. Although the little girl in the photo was wearing a different kind of school uniform and looked a little depressed, there was no mistake. It was the Xi she saw this morning. It's her, but she should be a little older than this photo. She's a lot taller. Li Ruolin nodded and said strangely, Why do you have a photo of her? Is she really the child of that celebrity? It's not just the child of a celebrity. Lu Xianxian sighed. Her father is a celebrity, and this child is also a celebrity. Their whole family is a celebrity. After a while, the two of them chattered as they walked into the teacher's apartment where they lived. Li Ruolin was about to kneel down. Only then did she understand that her student was so amazing. She had already acted in a movie at such a young age. The photo just now was a stills photo. She's still a diplomat. Lu Xianxian laughed and laughed. How would I know? I heard you say that she speaks English so well, so I guessed it myself. Li Ruolin rolled her eyes and said. Lu Xianxian was very gossipy. Not only did she have a deep understanding of the content of Murphy and Yang Yi's Qindu encyclopedia, but she also dug out some of Xi's recent reports to read. Lon Lon, come here. Look at this. Lu Xianxian pulled Li Ruolin over and pointed at her computer screen. The computer was playing a video. Xi was talking to Prada Li Ruolin and the others could not understand, but they could understand the Chinese subtitles. Her English is really good. Li Ruolin sighed. The amazing one is the child. She's so young, but she's not afraid at all on stage. She's chatting so naturally with this black man. Lu Xianxian praised. Next, they were stunned as they watched Xi dance the shuffle dance to the accompaniment of Seve. No wonder she's a star. But she has more skill points than us. Lu Xianxian sighed. You played too many games during the summer vacation, right? Li Ruolin could not help but laugh. Anyway, looking at her, I feel that I've lived for more than 20 years in vain. Lu Xianxian covered her head and pretended to cry. Do you know what I'm thinking? Li Ruolin calmed down from the initial surprise, shock and disbelief and laughed. What are you thinking? Lu Xianxian asked. I used to think that Yangxi could be the class's study committee member. Li Ruolin laughed. Now I think that the entertainment committee member is quite suitable for her. In the future, we won't have to worry about the class's programs. Isn't this too much of a waste? Such an excellent child. If it were me, I would directly make her the class monitor. Lu Xianxian said domineeringly. That's not necessary. You have to give the child room for improvement. Li Ruolin said. At this time, she also remembered what Yang Yi said before. Don't keep praising her like this. I'm afraid her tail will be raised. Her parents were not joking. They were serious. Young, she was really too excellent. Room for improvement? I think you're deliberately suppressing others. Lu Xianxian curled her lips and said, I want to suppress her, but I can't use the word suppress. I should say that I'm guiding her correctly. Li Ruolin was a language teacher. Unlike the female hooligan, who was a math teacher, she did not use words carelessly. She said carefully, the more excellent a child is, the more you need to guide her correctly so that she can understand the importance of hard work. Chapter 829. Yang Yi's main purpose of launching The Voice of China was to help Qianli Chuanshu, but he did not expect that Murphy herself would become a die-hard fan of the show. During the first episode of the show, Murphy was on the plane and did not watch the broadcast. This time, she did not miss the second episode. During the day, she would bring Shishi to school, and at night, she would wait in front of the TV, waiting for the broadcast of the show. Yang Yi was beside the castle, on the coffee table that had been moved out. Together with his daughter, he was handing her a few new textbook bags and book covers. If you want the textbooks to be as new and nice as they are now, you have to wrap them up with paper. Yang Yi held a large piece of high-quality paper that was not cheaper than the textbooks as he spoke to Shishi. This skill was mastered by Yang Yi's predecessor when he was young. At that time, his family was poor and Yang Chongwei did not have the money to buy many books for him and his brother. When Yang Yi was in primary school, Yang Huan was not even born yet. Therefore, Yang Yi's textbooks had to be carefully taken care of, so that he could continue using them when he was in school. This could save him a lot of tuition fees. His nimble mother, Dong Yu-yi, taught Yang Yi how to wrap the books, and Yang Yi did not disappoint. Not only did he wrap the books well, but he also took good care of the textbooks. From the start of the semester until the end of the semester, he did not pick up a pen to write on the textbooks. When Yang Yi used them, they were still brand new. In the past, the purpose of wrapping the books was to ensure that the textbooks could be recycled. Now Yang Yi's motive for wrapping the books for Shishi had changed. He hoped that the textbooks could be kept clean and tidy, and it would be best if the corners did not curl up. Cece stood at the side and watched with interest. Her two little hands were pressed on the coffee table. Of course, she couldn't sit still, and she didn't want to stand still either. Her body swayed gently with her little butt. You don't want the textbooks to become ugly after a few days of use, right? Yang Yi asked Shishi with a smile as he measured the books carefully. Don't become ugly. Of course, Shishi shook her head. She giggled and said, I'm not your little brother. Only a little brother would break a book. Murphy couldn't help but laugh when she heard that. It's your brother's fault again. Mr. Yang, let me tell you, I don't object to you wrapping Shishi's books, but don't let her be like you. Everything has to be symmetrical, neat, and tidy. Shishi turned around and snuggled up to her father, making a face at her mother. She liked to see her parents bickering with each other. Of course, her father always lost. Her father always seemed to be unable to outtalk her mother. Shishi, who pitied her father, would step forward bravely at this time. Yang Yi turned around and glanced at Tong Tong, who was still playing in the castle. The little guy now had a playmate. Because of the enclosed effect of his castle, Xiao Guai and the other cats were attracted. The originally maverick cats all came over and found their own comfortable places on the soft pillows. When your little brother grows up, he will also know how to take care of books. Yang Yi laughed. If he doesn't understand as his elder sister, you should teach him a lesson. Tell him, little brother, how can you be so naughty? You've ruined the books. Shishi felt that her father's imitation of her tone was very interesting. She couldn't help but giggle. She laughed so hard that she shook and fell on her father's body crookedly. The book cover that Yang Yi wrapped was still very beautiful. After wrapping it, the book cover seemed to have been redone. It became a very pure color. There was a white stripe on the top and a khaki color on the bottom. The ratio of white to khaki was about 1:3. It seemed that the whole book's image and temperament had been improved. Does it look good? Yang Yi wrapped the first textbook and handed it to Shishi. It looks good. The little girl happily took it and touched the cover that was slightly rough but did not lose its smoothness and luster. She replied crisply. She looked as if she couldn't bear to part with it. Yang Yi's heart was filled with a sense of accomplishment. It's not done yet. Yang Yi asked Shishi for the wrapped book. Then Yang Yi picked up a small hard brush that he had prepared on the table. He dipped it in the white paint that he had already mixed. In the middle of the cover, where the khaki background was, he wrote the word Chinese in small script. Yang Yi's calligraphy skills were average, but he could still fool ordinary people. So with this line of white words, the cover was improved by a level. It gave people the illusion that it was the cover of a Chinese textbook. Do you want to write your name here? Yang Yi was still unsatisfied. He pointed at the word Chinese and laughed. Yes, and then draw a flower here. It'll look good. Shishi snuggled into her father's arms and said excitedly. Yang Yi was a little surprised. He didn't expect his daughter to be able to draw inferences and give him ideas. Just as the father and daughter were wrapping up the book cover, the second episode of China's Top Voice began. Murphy clapped her hands happily. She quickly sat in the executive chair that she had moved from Yang Yi's study room. She turned around with her back facing the TV and turned up the volume with the remote control. Then she said to Yang Yi with a smile, "Neither of you can give me any hints. I want to choose blindly." Shishi's attention was attracted by her mother. She turned her head and watched with interest. Yang Yi shrugged and laughed. "Since you're so interested, why don't I let you be a mentor for the next season? I saw that you haven't made a comeback this season and didn't have time to go, so I didn't arrange for you. I think I'll pass. Compared to mentor Lin Qitian, mentor Feng Huiwen, and mentor Luo Jian, my qualifications are too lacking. I've even consulted with mentor Luo Jian before. How am I qualified to be on the same level as him and say that I want to be a mentor?" Murphy waved her hand. "That's hard to say. You're also one of the best singers in the Chinese music industry. Moreover, your fame has spread overseas. Who dares to say that you're not qualified?" Yang Yi laughed and said, "Moreover, this is our family's show. It's up to me whether I let you be on it or not." "How can that be? It'll ruin the show. I hope that this show can really help those who can sing well. If I want to be on this show, I'll have to work hard for a few more years. I'll have to at least be as famous and capable as Eason." Murphy was a little annoyed. "Then we'll talk about it in a few years. I have other shows for you anyway." Yang Yi laughed. "Okay, let's watch the show." Murphy giggled and said, "I think it's quite interesting to be an audience member. I'll choose blindly in front of the TV. No one knows. Then we'll guess which contestant will go to which mentor's team, okay? Do you want to bet with me? If you want to bet, you'll have to have something at stake." Yang Yi laughed and said, "I can assure you that I don't know anything about the results of the show. I didn't ask them. What do you want to bet on?" Murphy looked over curiously. "Tonight." Yang Yi looked at Shishi beside him. After confirming that she wasn't looking at him, he smirked and gestured with Murphy to take off his clothes. "Whoever guesses more wrong will perform this dance, okay?" Murphy rubbed her face and blushed. She said shyly, "Do you want to die? You're saying this in front of the child. What are you guys talking about?" Shishi looked innocent. "Daddy and Mommy said that whoever guesses more wrong tonight will have to perform the onion-flinging dance for the other party. Dee-da-dee-da-dee." Yang Yi deliberately waved his hands and said, "Hee-hee-hee-hee." Shishi was confused and was amused by her father. Chapter 830. Yang Yi mentioned the striptease dance because a few days ago, when he and Murphy were still in the United States, they watched a movie together in the bedroom on the farm. There was an extremely enchanting scene in the movie. Murphy turned her head and saw Yang Yi's eyes inadvertently revealing an expression of admiration. She decisively became jealous and somewhat unconvinced. She said, "Who doesn't know this dance? Isn't it just taking off all of it?" However, when Yang Yi's index finger was moved and wanted her to perform a scene, the music was already playing. Murphy was embarrassed and evaded him by beating around the bush. But Yang Yi could not forget it. "Do you want to do it? If I lose, I'll also dance." Yang Yi deliberately raised his eyebrows at Murphy, full of provocation. "So arrogant? How could it be? Murphy bit her lower lip, angrily glared at Yang Yi, and snorted. Let's do it. I also want to dance. I also want to dance. She excitedly stood up from her father's arms and said, I also know how to do this. This super simple spring onion dance was taught to her by Yang Yi before. Okay, but you have to dance first. Yang Yi rubbed Shishi's little head and said with a smile. Because the TV will be broadcast until very late, and you still need to sleep. Then Papa, you play the beat for me. The little girl really believed that her parents were going to do the spring onion dance. She happily ran to her brother's castle and picked up 2 pillow towels to use as spring onions. Dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-doo-doo-doo. Taking advantage of the fact that the program had not yet started, Yang Yi sang the accompaniment for Shishi. This song was not easy to sing, and it was only because Yang Yi's extraordinary speed of speech that he managed to sing it. Although there might be some mistakes in the middle, when she heard Yang Yi's fast singing, Murphy turned around and threw herself on the sofa beside her, laughing so hard that she was lying down. Shishi, on the other hand, was very focused on dancing, swinging the pillow towels left and right up and down. That serious effort of trying to keep up with the rhythm was indescribably cute. However, Tong Tong, who was sitting in the castle, opened his little mouth and looked at his sister in confusion. It was not known why his attention was attracted by his sister and not his father. The little guy's confused expression while drooling seemed to be saying, Sister, are you stupid? After a short interlude, the second episode of China's Voice began to air. The opening animation and the fast-talking commercial from the host, Super Hot, quickly cut to the end, and the first contestant took the stage. Mo Fei still played the same trick. She turned around and didn't look at the TV screen. However, she still saw the expression on Yang Yi's face as he sat on the sofa opposite her. He seemed a little surprised. What's the matter? Murphy asked with a smile, her heart itching. Yang Yi shifted his gaze from the TV screen to Murphy and smiled mysteriously. I'm not telling you. Do you want to turn around and watch together? Murphy gritted her teeth and snorted. She pouted and said, No way, I want to choose blindly too. In fact, Yang Yi was surprised because the first contestant sang his song. The subtitles on the TV screen read, When You're Old. Singer Sulu. Original singer, Murphy. Composer, Yang Yi. The contestant on stage was a girl with short black hair. She carried a guitar and looked very heroic. Like the other singers, she bowed to the audience and the musicians behind her after she went on stage. However, she did not want anyone to accompany her. She sat down on the high chair on stage and picked up her guitar. Ha! As soon as the sound of the guitar rang out, Sulu began to use her own voice to accompany the sound. Her slightly hoarse voice at this moment had an inexplicable ethereal quality. One must know that these 2 words usually didn't go together. Just by listening to her accompaniment, the 4 coaches on stage started to shake their heads. They were obviously a little intoxicated. Yang Yi's eyes also showed a hint of amazement. When You're Old. Nice song. Murphy knew what song it was from the prelude, but she still gave the singer a thumbs up. She whispered to Yang Yi, It's quite interesting to do it this way. Why didn't I think of it before? However, she only allowed the officials to set fires and not the common people to light lamps. After she finished muttering, she waved her hand and signaled Yang Yi to stop talking and listen to the song seriously. When You're Old and Your Hair is White. Sulu played and sang at the same time. Sulu's singing was completely different from Murphy's. Murphy's singing of this song was relatively affectionate. It also reflected the lingering beauty of her and Yang Yi's love. Unintentionally, there was a kind of seductive ripple in her voice. But Sulu didn't have as deep an understanding as Mo Fei. When she sang this song, she also sang it according to her own understanding. Her slightly hoarse, but still clear voice had a hint of tiredness, as if she was helpless about this kind of aging. Of course, to see her real singing skills, one had to listen to the line. How many people have loved the time when you sang happily in your youth? However, what surprised Yang Yi was that Sulu did not sing this line with a high pitch like Murphy. She still maintained her own characteristics and sang this line with a slow rhythm. Although there was a touch of high pitch, it was just like a paper airplane, smoothly gliding over. It's quite nice. Murphy gave high praise to Su Lu's adaptation. She excitedly discussed with Yang Yi. I think singing this line in a slow way is also very interesting. At this time, a teacher had already pressed the button. The rotating chair on the television screen lit up with the red, I choose you light. Who turned it? Murphy asked, unable to hold back her curiosity. Yang Yi could not keep her in suspense this time because she, who was also watching attentively, rushed to answer. It's Uncle Chen Yijie. Mom, that sister is crying. On the television, there was a close-up shot. Su Lu, who looked like a tomboy, had a trace of tears in her eyes, but she still pretended to be calm and tried her best to sing. She did not know if it was her experience singing in a bar that allowed her to cope with all kinds of unexpected situations. Although the moment Chen Yijie turned around, she was a little emotional, but her singing did not lose its standard. Just like before, she sang slowly and affectionately. Murphy also turned around when Su Lu sang for the second time. She was a little slower than Feng Huiwen, but she really liked Su Lu's singing. She gently clapped her hands and shook her head. Finally, the song ended, and the four teachers all turned around. Murphy still wanted to continue and said to Yang Yi, "This song is really suitable to be listened to with closed eyes. You didn't turn around, so you don't know the feeling. It's really wonderful." Really? Then I'll try the next singer. Yang Yi laughed. After Su Lu gave a simple introduction of her name, the four teachers all rushed to give their comments. The comments here were also a kind of knowledge. There was no need to talk about the failed contestants, but for the contestants who had many teachers turning around, the teachers' comments were also a way to win over the contestants. Maybe one sentence would touch the other person's heart, and the next second, the contestant would choose you as their teacher. Now was the time for the initiative to change hands. Chen Yijie also said in his very ordinary Mandarin, "Miss Su's voice is very good. Although it's not the kind of voice that sings sweet songs, I like it very much because such a voice can express a kind of strong emotion when singing." Teacher Feng Huiwen, Chen Yijie is saying that you're not suitable for little Su. Luo Jian deliberately said. You were the queen of sweet songs. I didn't mean that. Chen Yijie hurriedly waved his hand. It doesn't matter if you mean that. Anyway, the two of them are not suitable for each other. Little Su can choose between the three of us male teachers. Lin Qitian said cheerfully. It was rare for him to be serious. I don't want to bother with them. Xiao Su, I want to tell you that women understand women the best. Although I sing sweet songs, I also know other singing styles. I can give you some tips on how to sing a female song. What about them? Hee. Feng Huiwen laughed. On the stage, swords were drawn. Although these people deliberately made it so exaggerated for the effect of the show, after the director's editing, the atmosphere was indeed very tense. Su Lu, who felt that she was so lucky that she couldn't find her bearings, didn't know how to choose. Who do you think she'll choose in the end? Yang Yi asked. Hurry up and choose one. Once you've placed your bet, leave. Murphy rolled her eyes at Yang Yi. After a long time she said, I think she'll choose Luo Jian. Teacher Luo also sings love songs. Maybe he used to be Su Lu's idol. I think she'll choose Chen Yijie. Chen Yijie's influence is still bigger now. After all, the others are not very active in the music industry now, Yang Yi said. After Yang Yi finished speaking, the TV cut to a few very short advertisements. After the advertisements, Su Lu would definitely choose. He smiled and said, Then let's see who Su Lu will choose. Chen Yijie or Luo Jian. Or neither of them. Chapter 831. The commercials that were cut into the show after only a few minutes were not too long. 30 seconds later, the commercials from the two sponsors were over in the blink of an eye. The TV returned to the scene of China's top voice. All right, little Su, please make your choice. Luo Jian said. Su Lu's gaze became firm. She said, When I was learning how to sing, I listened to teacher Luo Jian's cassette tapes the most. Nanny. Yang Yi's heart skipped a beat. Oh no, it can't be like what Murphy said, right? Su Lu's choice was irreversible. She said sincerely. After that, I started singing. Although I studied and learned from many seniors, Teacher Luo Jian's songs left the deepest impression on me. That's why I'm so fortunate to be recognized by so many teachers. However, I still hope to join Teacher Luo Jian's team. It has always been my dream to be able to receive his personal guidance. Luo Jian stood up from his seat and proudly raised 2 fingers at the other 3 regretful mentors. He then turned around and hugged Su Lu. He even said, "You know, Xiao Su, I was scared to death just now. I was afraid that you would change your tone and say that you would choose someone else after talking about your admiration for me for so long." Yang Yi did not pay attention to the latter part of the conversation. He was looking at Murphy helplessly. Murphy was showing off in front of him. She coolly made a V-shaped gesture with her right thumb and index finger under her chin. It was not a good start. Things were not looking good. As the show progressed, Shi, who was about to go to bed, was sent upstairs. Yang Yi and Murphy were still watching TV in the living room. Both of them won and lost in their bets. There were also times when both of them guessed wrong. Overall, the situation was extremely tense. It was hard to tell who would have the last laugh. Again, before the next contestant came on stage, Murphy turned her chair around excitedly. However, she soon saw the surprise in Yang Yi's eyes. "What's wrong? Is there something special about this contestant?" Murphy could not help but ask. Yang Yi smiled gently and shook his head. He said, "I don't know how to put it. You'll know when you hear it." Mo Fei curled his lips and said, "Stop pretending." Then, a soothing guitar accompaniment sounded, and the contestants on the stage began their performances. It's guitar playing again. Why aren't the contestants using the band's accompaniment today? Those bands are much better than them. Murphy's ears were so sharp that she could tell the difference at once. However, Murphy quickly looked at Yang Yi in surprise. "Isn't this your college days? I can't believe I can hear it here." Yes, this song was the one Yang Yi previously wrote for Guizi to pick up girls at the freshman party, university days. However, compared to Yang Yi's other songs, this song was much less popular. After all, it was produced by the Hua Yi Brothers Company. Guizi, a non-professional singer, released the sound source earlier than Fairy Tale. At that time, Guizi was just a nobody. It was amazing that someone could know and choose to sing this song that was not popular. Of course, once the contestants on the stage opened their mouths, Murphy retracted her surprise. She was familiar with the voice and smiled. "Isn't this 1,000 Miles Chuan Chu? So they've been arranged for the second episode." Yang Yi shook his head with a smile and said, "I really don't know." He was a very competent manager. Not only had he passed the program to Hong Yuman and Yun Yangfeng, but he had also let 1,000 Miles Chuan Chu participate in the competition without informing the program team. Therefore, Lu Xiaoshu and Miao Chuan on the stage were just ordinary contestants. Murphy was right. This song was indeed less popular. When Lu Xiaoshu and the rest sang it, Luo Jian and Feng Huiwen, who had their backs to the stage, were surprised. "It's so good. What's this song called? I've never heard of it." Chen Yijie knew, but he was too slow to speak and Lin Qitian beat him to it. Professor Lin smiled and said, "You've never heard of this song? What a pity. It's one of Yang Yi's rare folk songs." It looked like Lin Qitian had done a lot of research on Yang Yi. Yang Yi's song? Luo Jian and Feng Huiwen were surprised. However, this was not the time to chat. Listening to the song was more important. Lu Xiaoshu was the lead singer while Miao Chuan was the backup singer. Both of them had worked together for many years. Their chemistry was so good that it felt like they were one. If one did not listen carefully, it would be difficult to distinguish their voices. However, what made Yang Yi feel emotional was that Lu Xiaoshu and Miao Chuan's singing of this song was closer to the original version. After going through that experience, Lu Xiaoshu and Miao Chuan's voices became more emotional. Their voices were slightly hoarse, with a hint of laziness and indescribable vicissitudes of life. Even when they sang, hiding in the corner, secretly crying, their voices revealed a pampering tone as if they had experienced the vicissitudes of life. They sang very well. Yang Yi could not help but say to Murphy, "I didn't expect them to secretly practice this. I'm starting to believe that you really didn't secretly get the results and cheat." Murphy's eyes twinkled as she said to Yang Yi, "Of course. I also specifically told everyone not to report to me about the program. I want to be an ordinary audience member. Yang Yi smiled and said, "You're only starting to believe now. If I had the results, how could I lose so many times just now? How could I let you go?" "Humph, I don't believe you. You're so glib, trying to coax me into dancing." Murphy's cheeks blushed as she spoke. Lu Xiaoshu and Miao Chuan's improvement in the past 2 years was very obvious. If the beginning of the song was just to soothe the audience's ears, then when they sang "What is Love I Don't Know," they switched between high notes and falsetto. Their excellent singing skills were reflected. Bang bang bang, for lights lit up one after another. The 4 mentors' swivel chairs turned around at the same time. They pointed at each other and laughed in surprise. "How many did you swivel?" Murphy's heart itched unbearably. "Guess." Lu Xiaoshu and Miao Chuan looked at each other. They could see the joy in each other's eyes. But the singing continued. Their work in the coffee shop allowed them to maintain a peaceful state of mind while singing. In the end, Murphy reluctantly turned around. She explained to Yang Yi, "I'm too familiar with them. I don't want to choose, so I turned around in the end." Of course, for Yang Yi, the most important part was to guess which mentor Lu Xiaoshu and Miao Chuan would choose. They must choose Chen Yijie. There's no doubt about it. Chen Yijie's singing is more helpful to them. Yang Yi rushed to say. Yang Yi felt that Lu Xiaoshu and Miao Chuan would choose Chen Yijie, not because of his singing, but because they were more familiar with Chen Yijie. On one hand, he was Yang Yi's good friend. On the other hand, Lin Mu, and was still in Chen Yijie's company. Murphy, however, held back her laughter. Her eyes flickered and she didn't dare to look at Yang Yi. "What's wrong? It's your turn to choose." Yang Yi was confused and asked with a smile. Murphy pursed her lips. She wanted to say something but stopped. Finally she said, "Since you've chosen Chen Yijie, then I'll choose Lin Qitian." Yang Yi was amused and laughed. "Then you'll probably lose." He firmly believed that Lu Xiaoshu and Miao Chuan wouldn't choose Lin Qitian, because Lin Qitian had been famous for too long. Yang Yi raised his hand and snapped his fingers. He shook his head proudly. "They should be the last group. If you lose, you'll have to dance tonight." Chapter 832. The news of Cici going to primary school was reported by some entertainment newspapers. However, this kind of gossip was destined to not attract much attention since there were no scandals or catfights. Therefore, Yang Yi did not even bother to respond to these reporters. He was fully focused on preparing for Cici's upcoming primary school life. The hottest news in the entertainment industry recently was none other than China's The Voice. Although this program had only been broadcast for 2 episodes, its viewership ratings had been soaring crazily. It had the potential to break the viewership ratings record for music talent shows. The more the audience watched, the more they paid attention to it. Naturally, the media flocked to it as well. This program was so popular that if any news outlet was not related to China's The Voice, they would be too embarrassed to snatch the headlines. Therefore, the netizens would be speechless when they saw news headlines like this. No worse than China's The Voice. The Great Travel Challenge premieres soon. Hu Kefi attends a sponsors event and says she wants to participate in China's The Voice. The Great Zhou Dynasty crew has confirmed that the second male supporting lead took part in China's The Voice auditions. Although the headlines were all about China's The Voice, the content of the news had nothing to do with it. Naturally, the comments below were incessant. However, these people were thick-skinned enough to take advantage of the hype. Why would they care about the scolding? Of course, the proper media were still enthusiastically reporting news related to China's The Voice. They were all trying their best to interpret the program from many different angles, so that they could stand out from the vast sea of news reports. The second episode of China's Voice gave them a chance, because there were many outstanding contestants in this episode. For example, Su Lu, the short-haired girl's singing had conquered many of the audience. It could even be said that she became famous overnight. Many people who heard Su Lu's performance of When You're Old all became her fans without any prior agreement. Now, on all the major social media sites and search engines, she was the most searched for. Many viewers even started to think that Su Lu was the most capable singer to win the championship. There were many outstanding contestants, and there were many stories behind these contestants. Even though China's The Voice had set up an official micro-broadcasting and official website, listing the background stories of the selected contestants that were supposed to be told on stage under their photos, the media was still not satisfied with the information that had already been released. They tried their best to search for more explosive news. There was really a reporter who managed to find one overnight, and it was published in the newspaper the next day. The origin of China's Top Voice's fourth promotion, Thousand Mile Creek Tree, is so strange. First of all, the first news that the reporter exposed was that Qianli Kuanshi's previous management company was Ronghua Management Company. The official website of China's Top Voice only mentioned that Qianli Chuanshu was once a trainee of a management company. However, because he was unwilling to follow the unspoken rules, he was shelved. Of course, the introduction did not mention the name of the company. However, this news was not difficult to find out. Last year, Lin Mu and had caused a scene at the Xiangnan TV station's talent show. He had also exposed the big news that Ronghua had cheated his junior brother, Thousand Miles Chuanshu. Many people still had a deep impression of it. Therefore, when the readers read up to this point in the report, they finally had a realization. So it's them. However, that was the extent of their impression. Compared to the cheated Thousand Miles Chuanshu, Tang Kaitai, who was involved in this incident and was later known as the most cheated brat in history, left a deeper impression on the readers. This Tang Kaitai has caused a lot of trouble. Even Thousand Miles Chuanshu was shelved by him. Luckily, they walked out of this incident. Otherwise, it would be a pity for them. They sing really well. After listening to University Days, fans who liked Thousand Miles Chuanshu expressed their opinions in the report. However, the biggest explosive point of this news was not Thousand Miles Chuanshu's past, but their present. Thousand Miles Chuanshu has signed with a new management company. It's the Hua Yi brothers. The reporter also exposed this. Perhaps many readers are not familiar with the Hua Yi brothers, but everyone is definitely familiar with the other artists in this company. Guozi Yonghuan. That's right, they are this year's popular newcomers to variety shows, the two permanent members of the Limit Challenge. Now that I've spoken up to here, everyone should understand that Brother Hua Yi's Yi character represents Yang Yi's own name. That's right, this company is opened by Yang Yi. China's The Voice is also one of the ace variety shows created by Yang Yi. With such a complicated relationship, it's almost certain that Thousand Miles Chuanshu will be able to advance to the next round, right? That's right, this report was not done to support China's The Voice. It came with a strong intention, clearly showing the intention to expose the dark secrets of China's The Voice. Beijing Tinya Bar. Su Lu was bidding farewell to her boss, Brother Ming. After today's program was broadcast, she would stop all her other part-time jobs and put in all her effort to join her mentor, Luo Jian's team, and receive his guidance. Similarly, there were tougher competitions waiting for her in the future. It could be said that Su Lu had embarked on a new path and was rushing towards the future she had always been looking forward to. Today was just a farewell to the past. Sister Lu, take a look at this news. A resident singer who had a pretty good relationship with Su Lu passed the phone over while looking enviously at Su Lu, who had dyed her hair back to black. He said, "China's The Voice actually has shady dealings. Do you think this is real?" Su Lu took a few glances and saw the report saying that there were dark secrets behind Thousand Miles Chuanshu's advancement. She fell silent. She had a deep impression of Qianli Kawaki because Qianli Kawaki had participated in the competition and video recording on the same day as her. Although she didn't watch Qianli Kawaki's competition, she still remembered the two big boys sitting quietly in the corner. It was easy to understand. After all, she only knew of this pair. But as for whether there were dark secrets behind their advancement, Su Lu could not say for sure. She had watched the program yesterday and Thousand Miles Chuanshu's singing was very good. Su Lu felt that it was normal for the mentor to turn around. Whether there are dark secrets or not, little Su, now that you have decided to move forward, you have to move forward with determination. Brother Ming walked over and took the phone from Su Lu's hand. He returned it to the resident singer and said to Su Lu meaningfully, "If you can become the champion, that would be even better. Our Tinya Bar would be proud of you, and we would be able to bask in your glory. But if you can't become the champion, then so what? If you can perform on this show with such high ratings a few more times, you will be able to gain more viewers. You will be able to sign a contract with a big record company and release an album. If you can continue, that in itself is a kind of victory. Sulu nodded lightly at Brother Ming. The knot in her heart just now had disappeared. When Thousand Miles Chuanshu's identity and background were exposed, Mo Xiaowan and the rest had already prepared for it. Lu Xiaoshu and the rest signing was not something that needed to be kept a secret. Their names had already been posted on the Hua Yi brothers' official website. However, Mo Xiaowan was still a little surprised. She did not expect the reporters to find out so quickly. We will hold a press conference on Tuesday. You can arrange it. Yang Yi will personally clarify this misunderstanding to the reporters. On Monday, Shishi will be busy on her first day of school. Mo Xiaowan walked out and went to Xiao AI's office. In addition, Micro-Broadcasting will release the explanation we have prepared. Chapter 833. It wasn't a bad thing that Shishi's background was known by her homeroom teacher, Teacher Li. On the first day of class, when the teacher assigned the seats, Shishi was cleverly arranged to sit in the 6th column of the 3rd row. Although she was still a little behind, if the seats were strictly divided according to height, Shishi's height would basically make her sit at the very back. Lan Xian and Shishi were a little different in height, so the two girls finally separated. Shishi also welcomed a new deskmate. When Shishi hugged her small school bag and sat down in her new seat, her new deskmate began to look at her curiously. Soon she couldn't help but ask, "My name is Lu Xiaoyu. What's your name?" At this moment, Shishi retracted her gaze from Lan Xian. Just now, the two girls had been communicating with their eyes. Lan Xian really didn't want to sit apart from Shishi. She felt so wronged. Shishi blinked her big eyes and looked at her deskmate. Lu Xiaoyu was a thin girl, a little like Yang Luoqi. She had 2 thin braids on her head. Of course, it was obvious that she was also quite extroverted. She had a bright smile. "My name is Yang Shi. You can call me Shishi." Shishi introduced her name to her deskmate seriously. "Then you can also call me Little Fishy because my name sounds a lot like Little Fish." Lu Xiaoyu giggled. "Hee hee, your name is so funny." Shishi and the other party quickly got closer. It just so happened that the extroverted girl met Chatty Shi. At first, Shishi was a little embarrassed, but soon, the two girls began chatting enthusiastically. The first day of school seemed to pass quickly. In the afternoon, Yang Yi came to school to pick up Shishi. The little girl indeed knew a lot of friends. She waved to them one by one before getting into her father's car with Lan Xian. Because the two families lived together, and Yang Yi came to pick up Shishi every day, Lan's Hao Kai simply asked Yang Yi to help pick up Lan Xian. The two girls went to school together, so they wouldn't be lonely. "Xian, today is your first day of school. Are you used to it?" Yang Yi asked with concern as he drove. "Papa, you didn't even ask me." Cici, who was at the side, cried out with jealousy. "Okay, I'll ask you too. I'll ask you later." Yang Yi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Lan Xian pouted and said, "Primary school is not fun at all." "Why?" Shishi asked with some surprise. Because we can't go out to play. We have to sit in the classroom, and then there's nothing delicious to eat. At noon, there's no delicious food like Uncle Yang Yi. I want to go back to kindergarten." Lan Xian said with grievance. "At noon, the school's food is not delicious?" Yang Yi asked. "What did you eat at noon?" "Not as delicious as Papa's food." At this time, Shishi also nodded. However, her description was much richer than Lan Xian's. "We had chicken drumsticks, broccoli, carrots, and eggs for lunch." After listening to Shishi's description, Yang Yi felt that the school's nutrition was not bad. "I don't like to eat vegetables. I want to eat delicious meat." Lan Xian pouted and said unhappily, "There's meat. Chicken drumsticks are meat." Shishi refuted. "No, it's just a little bit. It's not enough." Lan Xian cried out with grievance. Okay, Xian has suffered in school. Tonight's dinner at Shishi's house. Uncle will make delicious meat for you," Yang Yi said with a smile. Don't be sad. Eat with everyone at school. He felt that this was not a bad thing. At noon, he let Lon Xian eat less meat and more vegetables. It just happened that she could lose weight. She was not as gluttonous as Lon Xian. She could accept the school's food. Yang Yi felt that it was not a bad thing to let his daughter's stomach adapt to ordinary food. She couldn't eat fish and meat every day. If Shishi's mouth was as picky as Lon Xian's, it would be easy for her to become pretentious when she grew up. As a human, we have to experience the joys and sorrows of life. We have to taste all the flavors in the world. Lon Xian felt that this compensation condition was not bad. She could go to Shishi's house for dinner. The little girl finally smiled through her tears. Come on, I'll test you. Shishi and Xian you answer together. If you answer more, I'll make more delicious food for you tonight. Yang Yi asked with a smile while driving. What did you learn at school today? In order to eat delicious food, Lon Xian was particularly enthusiastic and said, There's nothing to learn. We only learn the pinyin aoi. Uncle Yang, you see, I know all of them. There's also mathematics. But Papa, we know all the mathematics taught by Mr. Liu. Shishi said. You really know all of them? What did Mr. Liu teach you today? Yang Yi asked curiously. Mr. Liu asked us to count. Shishi said. In the textbook, there are 2 little rabbits carrying backpacks and 2 little bears playing basketball. There are also 9 little birds flying in the sky. Did you say these yourself, or did Mr. Liu teach you? Yang Yi asked. Yang Yi felt that Shishi's description was a little complicated. It should not be something that she could say by looking at the textbook. Mr. Liu asked me, and then I counted them all correctly. Then Mr. Liu counted with me and said that there were 2 little rabbits carrying backpacks. The little girl said to her father with great interest. Yang Yi looked at his daughter from the rearview mirror, and could see his daughter's beaming face. Lon Xian next to him was a little confused. She did not have a good memory like Shishi. Very good, Shishi. In the future, in school, no matter if you understand what the teacher teaches or not, you have to listen carefully in class and actively answer the teacher's questions. Do you understand? Yang Yi praised Shishi with gratification and educated her. Okay. Shishi blinked her big eyes. What about the language class? What did you learn? Yang Yi asked. How did the teacher teach you pinyin? Speaking of this, Shishi became even more excited. She loudly recited in the car. Open your mouth, AAA. Hearing Shishi recite this, Lon Xian could not help but recite it. Round mouth oo flat mouthy. After reciting it, the 2 little girls looked at each other and giggled. This rhyme was quite interesting. Looking at their alternating between complaining and being happy, Yang Yi felt relieved. At least, on the first day of class, Shishi and Lon Xian seemed to adapt very quickly. They were able to keep up with the teacher's teaching progress. However, it wasn't hard to understand. After all, the kindergarten that Cici and Lanxin attended was also very good. In the kindergarten, they were playing around. Although the knowledge that they learned from secondary school was a little scattered, it was enough to satisfy most of their first-grade curriculum. More importantly, in Springfield Kindergarten, the teachers cultivated a special kind of mathematical logic for the children. This allowed them to think more than other children when they were learning other things. This was especially precious for their future studies. However, since they were in primary school, it was inevitable that they would come out of the comfortable world of play in kindergarten and begin to face more and more formal learning seriously. On the first day of school, Shishi and the others had to start doing their homework. Not long after returning home, Yang Yi received a homework message from Teacher Li on his mobile phone. Language homework. Children, please make pinyin alphabet cards when you get home. Not only do you have to write the letters correctly, but you also have to pronounce the 4 tones correctly. After making the alphabet cards, please read them to your parents. Chapter 834. Of course, Shishi also had math homework and English homework. However, these homework were quite interesting. For example, the math homework was from 1 to 10. She had to find items that corresponded to these numbers in her life, such as a soap, 2 towels, 3 toothbrushes, and so on. It was not a boring and repetitive type of homework. while Yang Yi was reading the homework assigned by the teacher on his mobile phone. She was also looking at her father, as if she was waiting for something. But from today onwards, Yang Yi would no longer take her hand to do her homework. Do you know what the teacher's homework means? Yang Yi asked with a smile. She nodded and gestured with her small hands, saying, Teacher Li said. She said that she wanted to make such a big card. Then write the letters on it and read it to Papa and Mom. And the little girl chattered for a while, almost repeating what the teacher said. Her memory was really good, especially the short-term memory. She could basically tell what happened that day when Yang Yi asked her to recount it. Yang Yi cleaned up the tea table in the living room. The tea table was not very useful now, so it was just right for Shi to do her homework. Shi stood aside and looked at her father curiously. She saw that he put a stack of A4 white paper, a long plastic ruler, and a long pencil on the table. Come here. Yang Yi smiled and waved his hand. Shi immediately ran over, thinking that her father was going to take her to do her homework. You can do the 3 homework here. Yang Yi patted Shishi's small shoulder and said softly, for example, the language homework. You can use the ruler to cut the white paper into cards according to what the teacher taught you. Then, write the few letters that you learned today in pinyin. Pay attention to the different tones. After Yang Yi said for a while, he smiled and said, when you are done, Dad will come to see your results and listen to you read pinyin to Dad, okay? Daddy is going to make dinner now. Cece, on the other hand, became anxious. She pulled her father's hand, pouted her little mouth, and said unhappily, No, Papa, why don't you do homework with me? Because you have to finish your homework by yourself. Daddy will accompany you to do your homework. How will you do your own homework in the future? Yang Yi gently patted Cece's little head and smiled. I don't want to do my own homework. In the future, Papa, can you accompany me to do my homework? She said reluctantly. The little girl's mind was quite clear, and she immediately caught the flaw in her father's words. That won't do. She listened to Dad. Now you are a primary school student. You are no longer a kindergarten child who relied on Dad for everything. After entering primary school, you have to start learning from the teacher. And most importantly, you have to learn by yourself and do things by yourself. Yang Yi patiently explained to Shi, for example, you like little goldfish very much, but in class, the teacher won't teach you about it. You have to find information by yourself to learn more about little goldfish. You have to raise a little goldfish by yourself, take care of it, observe it, and verify the knowledge you have found. Didn't you already do all these when you were in kindergarten? Shi pouted and nodded unhappily. That's right. We are now just expanding the interest of little goldfish. Whether it is a poem or a mathematical formula, you can learn and study it by yourself. Didn't you just tell Dad that you already understood a lot of what the teacher said in English class? Yang Yi said. Yes. The teacher told us to memorize the alphabet, but I understood it all. Shi said. If the teacher is talking about knowledge that you already understand, you can learn other things. For example, you only know how to speak English, but you don't know how to use a pen to write those letters and words. When the teacher is teaching the other students to read these, can you learn to write a little earlier and recite the alphabet of these words by yourself? Yang Yi felt that he was also racking his brains. From doing homework, he had extended it to so many things. But I don't know how to write. She said in confusion. So from now on, we have to do every homework well. In these homework, learn to learn by yourself. If you rely on Dad for everything, it will be difficult for you to learn these things quickly. You also want to be praised by the teacher, and you also want to get a good score in the exam, right? Then do your best. Dad believes that you can do these homework well by yourself. Yang Yi waved his fist at Shi and encouraged her. Shi was still a little reluctant to leave. Her expression was very melancholy as she muttered, I want Papa to help me. Dad is going to cook. Later, Xi and Air will come to our house for dinner. You don't want Xi and Air to be disappointed when she comes over and sees that the food is not ready, do you? Yang Yi said with a smile. And Dad didn't say that he won't accompany you. Later, when you finish the part that you need to do by yourself, Dad will come over and finish the rest with you. Don't you want to read it to Dad? Hearing this, Shishi felt a little better in her heart. Dad will come over later. Dad didn't abandon me. Okay then. The little girl finally nodded, although she was still a little reluctant. Come on. When you finish, we can have dinner, and then you can play at night. Yang Yi said with a smile. There wasn't a lot of homework now. Shishi didn't really have to choose between playing time and doing homework. After her father walked away, Shishi sat down in front of the tea table. She rested her chin on her hand and tilted her little head. She looked worried. What should I do? Without her father by her side, Shishi still felt very helpless. As soon as her father walked away, Shishi found that all the thoughts in her mind were in a mess. She didn't know where to start. After a while, Shishi calmed down a little and sorted out her thoughts. Do the language homework first. In fact, Shishi remembered the requirements of the homework clearly. She also saw her father cut the white paper with a ruler many times. The little girl took a piece of paper. It seemed a little thick, but she didn't look at it carefully. She pressed the ruler on it. Then she grabbed a corner of the paper and began to tear it. Oh, crash! Her right hand was slightly stronger than her left hand. Shishi didn't know how to balance her strength. As a result, when she tore the paper, the ruler on her left hand slipped. Although the paper was torn in the end, it looked crooked. One side was big, and the other was small. It doesn't look good. Shishi pouted. She grabbed a piece of paper with both hands and looked at her results unwillingly. Moreover, Shishi realized that she had taken too much. There were 2 pieces of white paper. The little girl had encountered a problem. She subconsciously turned to look in the direction of the kitchen. Her father was cooking. Shishi could still see his back as he walked. If her father was here, he would definitely teach her how to deal with this problem. But her father wasn't here. What should she do? Shishi was conflicted. She turned her head back and looked at Steamed Bun, who was lying next to her and loyally accompanying her. She asked softly, Steamed Bun, do you think I should go ask Papa? Steamed Bun heard his little master call him and lifted his head. However, he didn't understand what Shishi said. He only wagged his tail to please her. Oh, Shishi pouted unhappily and said, Steamed Bun, you're not going to let me ask Papa for help either? If you don't help me, I don't like you anymore. Steamed Bun? Chapter 835. Because of some wonderful misunderstandings, Shishi gave up her habit of looking for her father whenever she encountered a problem, and decided to figure out how to cut the paper by herself. He saw the little girl sitting at the table, looking at the paper she had just broken with a frown on her face. Her drooping eyebrows, that pitiful little appearance, made him feel particularly distressed. She tried to try again, but the effect wasn't obvious, and the paper was still torn crookedly. The card made this way wouldn't look good. Shishi pushed the broken part to the other side of the coffee table. How did Papa do it? Shishi tilted her little head, trying hard to recall. At this time, the little girl's extraordinary memory showed its usefulness. She remembered that when her father used to do handicraft homework with her, he would always fold the paper first. Papa, why did you do that? Because after folding it like this, we can press a mark here. When you tear it, the paper will split according to this mark, and it will be neat. Shishi's mind still echoed the conversation she had with her father. In fact, Shishi had just casually asked, watching her father do things. If she didn't say a few words, it would be too boring. But her father had patiently answered her question. She didn't expect that after so long, the answer would come in handy. The little girl who had found a way showed a happy smile on her face, and she excitedly went to fold the paper. In order to compress the creases, she stuck out her little butt, and struggled to put all her weight on her little hands. The coffee table was quite sturdy. After a while, Shishi's cheerful cry came from the living room. Done! The little girl pinched the 2 pieces of paper, looked left and right, and smiled with satisfaction. In fact, when she folded the paper, she didn't align the 2 corners, and the paper was a little asymmetrical, but Shishi couldn't see it. She felt it was already very neat. Shishi happily jumped out from the coffee table, hugged the inexplicably wrong Bao, and said happily, Bao Bao, you were right. We don't need to ask Papa for help. I want to do it all, and then show it to Papa. Then Papa will say, Shishi, you're really super awesome. That's great. As the little girl spoke, she became intoxicated in her imagination and began to gesticulate with her hands and feet. Steamed Bun didn't know what was going on, but he didn't think too much about it. If the little master was happy, he was happy too. It seemed like he thought that the little master was playing with him, so he also jumped up and down happily, wagging his tail happily. Murphy came downstairs with Tong Tong, who had just taken a bath and smelled good. She saw Shishi lying in front of the coffee table, writing and drawing with a pencil. Shishi, what are you doing? Murphy leaned over curiously. Shishi, who had been very focused just now, didn't notice. When she heard her mother's voice, she raised her head and looked at her mother with her big bright eyes. I'm doing my homework. Doing homework alone? Do you want Mom to teach you? Murphy asked with concern. She hadn't communicated with Yang Yi yet, so she thought that Yang Yi was busy cooking and didn't accompany Shishi. However, at this moment, Shishi was very satisfied with the state of exploring by herself. Moreover, she wanted to do this homework well and get her father's praise later. The little girl waved her hands repeatedly. No, Papa said I want to do my homework by myself. Murphy raised her eyebrows in surprise and said with a smile, Okay, then you do it by yourself. However, at this moment, Tong Tong stretched out his small body from his mother's arms, stretched out his small hands, and called in a childish voice, Jia Jia. It was unknown whether he wanted to play with his sister or was curious about the pen or other things in his sister's hand. We can't disturb sister from doing her homework. Let's go see what delicious food Papa made for us today. Murphy stood up with him in her arms and walked to the kitchen with a smile. After a while, when the kitchen door opened, a strong smell of meat soup floated in. Steamed Bun couldn't help but get up from the ground. He stuck out his tongue and looked in the direction of the kitchen with bright eyes. Cece was still trying her best to deal with her homework. When her father finished cooking, Shishi had also finished her homework. As soon as she finished writing, the little girl couldn't wait to put down her pen and ran to the kitchen. She took her father's hand and said, Papa, I'm done. Looking at her expectant eyes, she didn't know how much she wanted her father's praise. Yang Yi followed her out and looked at Shishi's homework. He first looked at the top, Shishi's math homework. A puppy. Yang Yi saw Shishi's crooked numbers and some corresponding drawings on the paper. He pointed at the drawings and asked with uncertainty. Obviously, Shishi, who hadn't learned how to write yet, used a combination of pictures and pictures to do her homework. Just like the letters she wrote before, Yang Yi also encouraged Shishi to use her drawing ability to do her homework. Otherwise, how could a little girl who just started school finish this homework that required writing by herself? A dog is Steamed Bun, Shishi said with a smile. She couldn't wait for her father to guess the riddles, so she took the initiative to tell her father. Then there are 2 eyes, Steamed Bun's eyes, 3 cats, Xiao Guai, Xiao Hui and Dodo. It was also difficult for her to draw the specific images one by one. Although it couldn't be said to be exactly the same, Shishi's drawing ability had improved a lot over the years, especially the integration of the cartoon style. Yang Yi felt that Shishi's drawings were quite recognizable. Not bad, you did very well in your math homework. You fully used your imagination, and you drew so many drawings by yourself. Look at your 10 pillows, you even drew 10 pillows on top of them. Dad believes that you must have done your homework very seriously. Yang Yi smiled and patted Shishi's little head. Now that you've finished, do you feel a sense of accomplishment? Shishi giggled and twisted around, too embarrassed to admit it. Just as Yang Yi was looking at her homework and praising Shishi, Lan Xian and her mother arrived. Murphy pressed the remote door lock of the courtyard, and Lan Xian took the lead and ran over excitedly. Xian, have you finished your homework? Yang Yi asked Lan Xian casually as he greeted Wu Jingjing. Lan Xian ran past Yang Yi and said, What homework? She ran to Shishi's side. Yang Yi looked at Lan Xian's absent-minded appearance and already knew the answer in his heart. Today's class, the homework assigned by the teacher. She didn't do any homework, Wu Jingjing said with a wry smile. As soon as she got home, she sat in front of the TV and watched cartoons. She didn't want to move even when I called her. If it weren't for the fact that she wanted to come to your house for dinner, she wouldn't even move her butt. Yang Yi looked at Lan Xian, who was laughing heartlessly with Shi, and shook his head helplessly. Big brother Lan isn't back yet? Murphy asked Wu Jingjing curiously. Didn't he finish his meeting? Wu Jingjing smiled and pointed at Yang Yi saying, then you'll have to ask your husband. He said he wants to buy an island or something and sent our old Lan to Jinling. He wants to buy an island? Murphy asked Yang Yi in surprise. Yang Yi nodded lightly and said, Big brother Lan went to the capital for a meeting this time. I heard that there are many new policies that need to be passed. For example, private leasing of islands and land can be extended to 100 years. I discussed it with him and decided to rent the training island beside our piece of land in Jinling. It's better to develop it together. Murphy was just asking casually. She was not interested in Yang Yi's business. Chapter 836. Students, did you finish the homework I gave you yesterday? Li Ruolin didn't stand on the podium. Instead, she walked along the aisle between the seats and blended into the midst of the children. Yes. The children's responses were still a little scattered. However, there were a few activists who not only answered clearly, but also excitedly raised their little hands high as if they were worried that the teacher couldn't see them. For example, Shi. There were also children who just nodded and didn't say anything. For example, Lan Xian, Li Ruolin didn't mind. She smiled and randomly picked a child next to her. Wang Lele, can you take out your homework and show it to us? The boy with the crew cut was stunned for 2 seconds. He seemed to be confused as to why the teacher was looking for him. He was a little nervous. As he took out the card he made, he looked as if he was crying. With tears in his eyes he mumbled, I did it, Teacher Li. I did it. Li Ruolin was a little frightened by his reaction. When she taught the children in the upper grades, they didn't feel wronged because of one sentence from her. And she didn't say anything serious. Ahem. I just want to see how you did with your homework. I'm not criticizing you. Good boy, don't be afraid. Li Ruolin took over and gently placed her hand on his shoulder, comforting him gently. Li Ruolin had interacted with some teachers who had taught the first graders before. They advised her to praise and encourage them more. The first graders didn't understand a lot of things. If they could often be praised by the teacher, they would be more motivated to learn. Therefore, no matter how well Wang Lele completed his homework, Li Ruolin tried her best to pick the good parts and praised him. You can see that when Wang Lele wrote these pinyin, he transcribed it very seriously. It was written very neatly. My father wrote this. Wang Lele said honestly. His voice was getting softer and softer. My father said that I didn't write well. Li Ruolin choked. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry at this moment. Ahem. Student Wang Lele told me that these letters were written by his father, and he didn't hide it. This shows that he is very honest. I suggest that everyone applaud for student Wang Lele's honesty, and then learn from him. What do you think? Li Ruolin still found a way. She clapped along with her classmates. As she clapped, she looked at the teacher thoughtfully. After a round of applause, Li Ruolin smiled and handed the card back to Wang Lele. She said softly, It's okay that Dad wrote this, but I hope you can learn to write it yourself. Just use the sitting and holding posture that I taught you yesterday. Try to finish your homework by yourself next time. You don't need Dad's help, okay? Wang Lele finally wasn't so nervous anymore. He even nodded vigorously. After passing by a few students, finally, under Shi's expectant gaze, Li Ruolin walked to Shi's side. Student Yang Shi, can you share your homework with the teacher and students? In fact, it wasn't just Shi who was looking forward to showing her homework. Li Ruolin was also very curious. How well did this little girl in her class, who was said to be very smart, complete her homework? Shi handed over the piece of paper that she had been holding in her hand for a long time. When the teacher flipped through it, she couldn't wait to say to Li Ruolin, Teacher, I did all these. My papa asked me to make these papers myself, but I couldn't do it well. I only managed to do it later. Then I wrote these and I drew these. Li Ruolin could see that the strokes of the pinyin letters were relatively immature. They were not written neatly and crookedly. It was obvious that they were written by Shishi, who had not practiced writing for a long time. However, she preferred some of the small flowers on this piece of paper. They were all drawn with a pencil. Although the strokes were not smooth enough and the pattern looked relatively awkward, the flowers filled in the blanks on the white paper other than the pinyin letters. The layout was ingenious and looked much more exquisite. As expected of the child of a celebrity, she has very artistic cells. She has to do an ordinary homework perfectly. Li Ruolin secretly sighed in her heart. Cece even pointed at the edge of the paper and stated enthusiastically, "My papa said that I didn't do it well enough, so he helped me cut here. These were made by my papa, and the rest were made by me." The paper that Shishi made was not cut square enough. After dinner, Yang Yi helped Shishi cut it with scissors. The 12 pieces of paper were trimmed to the same size, just like playing cards. "But you did the rest by yourself?" Li Ruolin asked with some surprise. Seeing that her words had been answered, Shishi nodded happily and said more enthusiastically, "Yes. Teacher Li, my papa gave me a ruler, but I didn't do it well at first and tore the paper. Then I remember papa." Fortunately, Li Ruolin was more patient. She listened to Shishi's story of how she found a way to cut the paper. "Very good." Li Ruolin smiled and clapped her hands. She raised her head and said to the other students, "She almost completed this homework by herself. The teacher thinks that everyone should learn from Shishi and learn from her hard work and serious attitude towards homework. Shi, the teacher wants to ask you, after doing this homework, do you feel that you have a more thorough understanding of these pinyin, and a deeper memory of them?" Li Ruolin stayed with Shishi for a few more minutes. When Shishi heard this question with a complicated combination of words, she hesitated for a few seconds. After understanding it, she nodded. "That's right, that's true." Li Ruolin stood beside Shishi and nodded in satisfaction. She smiled and said, "Many children may not understand because when you were in kindergarten, you may not have homework." However, this time, it was Shishi's turn to undermine her. The little girl looked at the teacher in confusion and said, "Yes, teacher. Our kindergarten has homework." Li Ruolin nodded helplessly and said, "All right, the teacher is talking about some children. Because some children may not do much homework, they can't understand why the teacher assigns homework to you every day." Assigned homework every day? Many children in the class widened their eyes in surprise. Shishi was also a little surprised. Homework every day? Wouldn't that mean that they wouldn't be able to play for a period of time every day? Even Shishi was a little conflicted. She didn't like to do homework every day. How boring would that be? Li Ruolin continued, "Because after you go to primary school, you will be exposed to a lot of new knowledge in the future. The teachers of different subjects will teach you a lot of lessons. With so much knowledge, after listening to it in class, you might forget it the next day. Therefore, you need to consolidate what you have learned in a day through homework. Only then will your learning be more effective." Many children, including Shishi, frowned sadly. They really didn't like to do homework. Chapter 837. A primary school student's life was much more colorful than a kindergarten child's. After all, the school was bigger, there were more children, and there were more new things to do. But there were gains and losses. When the novelty wore off, Shishi and the rest had to face reality. For example, they had to study nonstop every day and do their homework every night. Just like what Lon Xian said, if you don't want to grow up, growing up might not be a happy thing. In the conference room of a hotel in Jiangcheng, Yang Yi brought along 1,000 Miles Kawasaki and Lu Chuan to attend the media meeting that Mo Xiaowan had arranged for him. Before the meeting started, Yang Yi naturally had to clarify the rumors that he had manipulated the results of China's The Voice's audition behind the scenes. But Yang Yi's few words of clarification did not have much effect. The reporters did not give up and asked, "Yang Yi, how can you prove that you did not manipulate the results of China's The Voice's audition? 1,000 Miles Kawasaki is an artist under your company. Shouldn't you avoid suspicion by not participating in the show?" "I would like to correct a statement made by this friend." Yang Yi faintly smiled and said, "Lu Xiaoshu and Miao Chuan are my friends. Although they are signed under my company's name, this contract doesn't have any restrictions. They can leave at any time. The Huai brothers decided to set up this company because they were treated unfairly at Ronghua Tower. Its mission is to provide a place for my friends and family who are willing to make a living in the entertainment industry. Xiao Guo, Xiao Shu, Xiao Chuan, they are all very good friends of mine. The entertainment reporters below the stage were in an uproar. This was a big piece of news. Yang Yi had never said this to anyone before. Many celebrities and newcomers in the entertainment industry were envious of the treatment that Guozi and Thousand Miles Kawasaki received. Because of Yang Yi's reputation, they all wanted to join the Huai brothers' management company. The reporters looked at Yang Yi excitedly and thought to themselves, when this news is released, who knows how many people who want to join will cry in the toilet? Mr. Yang Yi, may I ask if your words can be understood this way? This management company of yours is closed to the public and doesn't recruit people? No matter if it's a celebrity who has been famous for a long time, a trainee, or a new artist. A reporter couldn't help but ask. That's right. The reason why Brother Huai is called Brother is also for this purpose. The original intention of setting up this company is not to make money, but to give my good friends who have dreams a management company that won't cheat them, and to help them form a management team. Yang Yi smiled. If these things were revealed, it would definitely cause a lot of controversy. Yang Yi could also predict that the media would analyze him, but Yang Yi did not care. He chose to be magnanimous and willful. At this moment, Lu Xiaoshu took the initiative to ask for the microphone and said, I can confirm that because the company's contract does not have any restrictions on us staying or leaving, but Mao Chuan and I will not leave no matter what. Because we are good friends with Big Brother Yang, and Big Brother Yang has helped us so much. We have no reason to leave. Logically speaking, the commission that Huai Brothers Company gives us is only a small, very small part. It is only used for the basic operations of the company. We can't get such treatment anywhere else, so we have no reason to leave. Can it be said that you are also determined to stay in Brother Huai's company because of Yang Yi's songwriting ability? A reporter asked sharply. Yang Yi took the microphone and said, Let me formally introduce Lu Xiaoshu and Mao Chuan to you. Both of them are very excellent and potential songwriters. The music they create is recognized by me. Although they haven't officially debuted yet, I can tell you that the folk music they create themselves is also quite good. You can hear it in their albums in the future. I won't deny that I will write songs for them, but please believe me when I say that you will like their original music. Maybe my songs won't be able to steal their limelight. Yang Yi smiled and said. In addition, on the stage of China's Voice, they all sang other people's songs and advanced step by step. If they did not sing their own songs, it would be tantamount to breaking their own arms. If I wanted to control the results, why would I let them only perform their own songs? Singing their own original songs is a plus. Before this, Yang Yi had already explained that he did not make any special arrangements for Qianli Chuanshu. Even his good friend Chen Yijie, who was a mentor, did not know about the relationship between Qianli Chuanshu and Yang Yi. Mr. Yang Yi, can I understand it this way? If there were no shady dealings, Qianli Chuanshu might have been eliminated and might not be able to win the championship, right? A reporter asked. Yes, anyone can be eliminated, and anyone can win the championship. Please pay attention to my words. I'm not a mentor, and I'm not a jury composed of major media that may participate in the future, so I can't predict who may win the championship and who may be eliminated in the future. Yang Yi didn't let him have his way. However, Yang Yi suddenly changed the topic. But as a normal audience member, in my opinion, our team of The Voice of China is filled with talent. There are many singers with good singing and singing skills, and there are many who are even better than Thousand Miles Kawaki and the others. He was not wrong. The entertainment industry in this world was too developed. Among the singers who were not successful, there were many who had amazing abilities and even potential. Qianli Chuanshu's singing could only be considered average among the singers who had advanced. Furthermore, this was the result of them singing folk songs to a certain extent. However, Yang Yi's words still surprised many of the reporters. Why would Yang Yi say that in front of Qianli Chuanshu and the rest? He did not give them any face at all. Maybe I was a little harsh, but this is an indisputable fact. I also hope that Qianli Chuanshu and the rest can recognize the gap between themselves and others through this competition, and not fight for the championship title. Yang Yi patted Lu Xiaoshu and Miao Chuan on the shoulders and said sincerely to the reporters, when I suggested for them to participate in the competition, I told them that they do not care if they can win the championship or not. In this competition, they just need to enjoy the process of competing with others, and recognize their own shortcomings and learn from them. That is enough. The entertainment industry is constantly changing every day. No matter how much glory you have now, no matter how popular you are now, sooner or later, you will be replaced by someone who is more attuned to the trend. When that time comes, no one will remember that you have won any championship. All these glory are just empty words. Only by constantly improving your own abilities will you be able to guarantee your longevity. Yang Yi's meaningful words stunned the reporters. The 4 coaches on China's Top Voice are all very appropriate examples. No one will deny their singing skills, their voices, and their works. Even after so many years, everyone has forgotten the honors they once received. But to this day, their voices are still unforgettable. That's what I mean by enduring. Yang Yi smiled. Since no one wants to win the championship, why did they participate in this competition? If they participate, they will take up one of the spots for others to advance. The reporters hit the nail on the head with their questions. Because on China's Voice, it doesn't care if you're good-looking or not, what your background is, or what your past is like. It only judges your ability based on your singing. Lu Xiaoshu answered cleverly. Since it doesn't matter about your background, we naturally have the right to participate. We also want to use our voices to compete with the other contestants and see how good we are. Of course, to be able to receive the guidance of our idol, teacher Lin Qitian, is the best thing that could happen. Lu Xiaoshu's answer received applause from many reporters. Their sincerity was also acknowledged by the reporters. Actually, I didn't expect that you would choose teacher Lin Qitian. When I was watching TV at home, I even made a bet with Murphy that you would choose Chen Yijie. In the end, I lost the bet because of you. Yang Yi turned around and joked. Lu Xiaoshu and Miao Chuan scratched their heads in embarrassment. I still want to say that although I was the one who provided the idea for China's Top Voice, I still have to thank director Hong Yuman, the 4 coaches, and all the staff in the production team for giving everyone such a good viewing experience. I didn't participate in the follow-up work of the show at all. Whether it was the organization, the auditions, or the recording of the show, all of these tasks were done by them alone. Yang Yi smiled as he explained to the surprised reporters. This is also the reason why I didn't know which coach 1000 Miles Chuanshu and the others had chosen. Of course, when they advanced, they did call me to tell me the good news. But at that time I was in America. International calls were too expensive, so I didn't tell them which coach they had chosen. The reporters could only half believe and half doubt Yang Yi's words. In the report, they would naturally have their own way of expressing themselves. However, when Yang Yi mentioned Murphy, the reporters' eyes lit up. Yang Yi, does Murphy also like to watch China's Top Voice? Chapter 838. Reporting on a small group that was not famous yet. Even if they had a relationship with Yang Yi, the popularity of this news would not be very high. But Mo Fei was different. She was now a hot news topic. Especially now that news of Murphy and Yang Yi becoming famous overseas was still spreading in China. Some media outlets had even hyped up the rumor that Murphy had become an international superstar. These unverified news also attracted the attention of the audience. Therefore, the reporters took the opportunity to ask questions about Murphy. Yang Yi, does Murphy also like to watch China's Voice? Yang Yi was stunned for a moment, then he smiled and replied, yes, she likes this show. We did not return for the first episode, but she managed to make it in time for the second episode's premiere that night. Yang Yi, why didn't China's Voice choose Murphy as a mentor? Is it to avoid suspicion? The reporters continued asking. There are many reasons. Firstly, China's Voice has very high standards for choosing mentors. For example, teacher Lin Qitian, teacher Feng Huiwen, and teacher Luo Jian. Chen Yijie is my friend, but let's not talk about him. These three mentors are all important figures in the Chinese music industry, and their musical achievements are obvious to all. Murphy is still young after all, so she needs to learn more. Also, even if the standards were lowered, she does not have the time to participate in so many episodes of the show. Yang Yi smiled and said, "There are many other reasons, but I can tell everyone that it is definitely not to avoid suspicion. Our show has always chosen the most suitable guests to give the audience the best viewing experience." Yang Yi, when will Murphy make a comeback? Does she have any plans to develop in America? The topic of the press conference had completely deviated. These are the last two questions about Murphy that I will answer. After all, today's theme is China's voice, so I hope everyone will pay more attention to our show. Yang Yi received the note from Mo Shaoan and quietly controlled the pace of the press conference. Murphy's comeback is scheduled for the end of the year. She hopes to use the date of her child's birth last year as the official comeback date. It's a lucky day, isn't it? Yang Yi smiled. Also, Murphy doesn't have any plans to develop in the United States. This has been explained in the studio's micro-broadcasting. Friends who don't know much about this can pay more attention to our micro-broadcasting. Yang Yi, let me ask you a few more questions. What are the plans for Murphy's comeback? A concert or a new album? The reporters were still reluctant to leave, but under Mo Xiaozhuan's arrangements, the press conference came to an end. There was no need to keep Murphy's comeback a secret. It was because there were still nearly 3 months before Murphy's comeback. If they revealed everything now, it would definitely attract a lot of attention for Murphy. However, after 3 months of waiting, even the highest level of popularity would die down. Mo Shaoan wanted to arrange the press releases properly for the next 3 months. From time to time, she would reveal some new things so that she could continue to retain the enthusiasm of the fans. After the Chinese class ended, Xi and her classmates welcomed their first physical education class in their lives. Because there was a physical education class today, Cici and her classmates had all put on their school uniform summer sports attire. It was a t-shirt with a blue collar and white sleeves, paired with sports shorts with a blue background and white stripes on the side. Huijia Primary School's uniforms were very expensive, but the materials used were practical. They were soft, breathable, and had a high content of cotton. It was comfortable for the children to wear, and it was also convenient for them to stretch their limbs during outdoor sports. It was September in Jiangcheng, and the weather during the day was still relatively hot. It was stuffy to wear long pants during outdoor sports. Hence, Xi and most of her classmates wore shorts. Only a small number of children with weaker physiques wore long pants. The length of the shorts was basically around the knees. It was neither too long nor too short. Xi was the same. After all, her clothes were slightly bigger than the other students. However, Xi's legs were slender, especially her calves. When she wore the shorts, her slender calves were exposed. Compared to the other students in the class, they were obviously longer. When she stood in a row, it made the little girl look more energetic. During the first physical education class, Xi and her classmates were the same. They were all curious and happy as they followed the physical education teacher to the sports field. Compared to staying in the small classroom, the sports field with a wide field of vision and bright sunshine was more interesting. After a round of self-introduction, the physical education teacher, Lu Dashan, arranged the children to line up in 4 rows according to their height. He was not as gentle and kind as Ms. Li Ruolin. Perhaps it was because he had practiced physical education, but he was more straightforward and went straight to the point. Let's do some warm-up exercises first. You have to remember that the purpose of warm-up exercises is to prevent muscle strain during the exercise. Hence, you must remember to do warm-up exercises before exercising in the future. These words were so profound that many children opened their eyes and looked at Mr. Lu in confusion. Xi, on the other hand, understood what a warm-up exercise was. The little girl's eyes lit up. She remembered the warm-up exercises she had done when her father taught her martial arts, and when her mother taught her to dance. However, the physical education teacher in front of her looked a little fierce. Although Xi had a lot to say, and wanted to introduce what she had learned to the teacher, She still looked at Mr. Lu timidly, and did not dare to open her mouth. Well, let's start from the first movement. Take your time. Lu Dashan was actually a strong man with a fierce face but a gentle heart. Compared with Yang Yi, he did look a little fierce. He knew that he was not good-looking and was not good at talking, so he did not talk much and did not explain how to do the movements. He directly showed the children the first movement of the warm-up exercise, bowing and stretching. His right leg was bowed forward and his left leg was straightened. However, Lu Dashan had improved this warm-up exercise. He also raised his arms and straightened his palms above his head. Wow! Lu Xiaoyu, who was beside Shi, could not help but exclaim, "Mr. Lu is so awesome!" Not only Lu Xiaoyu, but many children also opened their small mouths and looked at Mr. Lu Dashan in surprise. Some children, like Lu Xiaoyu, shouted out their admiration. Some, like before, were still thinking about Mr. Lu's fierce appearance and did not dare to move. Shi was not too surprised. She was experienced and knowledgeable. Her father was much better than Mr. Lu Dashan. Moreover, even her grandfather could do more exaggerated movements. This movement is a little difficult, but it is a good warm-up exercise to stretch your muscles and prevent your muscles from straining during the exercise. Now let's divide into two groups. Students in the same group will help each other and take turns to support each other to do this movement, okay? Teacher Lu Dashan looked rash, but he wasn't. He still took care of these small first-year students whose body coordination might not be good enough. He looked around and said, "In our class, boys and girls are in 2 rows. So the girls in the first row and the girls in the third row will form a group. You will form a group with your corresponding classmate. The same goes for boys." She looked ahead. She was the tallest girl in the third row, so her corresponding classmate was the tallest girl in the first row. Wasn't that Lan Xian? Lan Xian also turned her head and looked over. When she saw that she was going to form a group with she smiled happily. Chapter 839. Bend your right leg and straighten your left leg as much as possible. Teacher Lu Dashan walked in the middle of the students. Although he didn't speak much, he was very serious when teaching. For example, when Teacher Lu Dashan passed by Wang Lele and saw that the little boy's left leg was about to kneel down, he patted Wang Lele's shoulder and motioned him to look over. He made the correct posture and pointed to the straightened leg behind him. Like this. Lu Dashan needed to give the children more time to master the warm-up movements for the first time, so he patiently guided them one by one. On Shi and Lan Xian's side, Lan Xian was more relaxed. She stood in front of Shi and supported Shi's shoulder according to the teacher's instructions. However, Shi had a good sense of balance. Although she tried to straighten her hands and raise them high, she didn't stagger like the other children. Lan Xian didn't want to be too easy. Hehe. The chubby little girl was still secretly happy for her little friend's posture. She tried her best to make the movements very accurate. But looking at Lan Xian's smiling face, the little girl couldn't help but smile, as if the smile was contagious. However, Lan Xian's good days were about to come to an end. Teacher Lu Dashan glanced at Shi, who did a beautiful bow, but didn't come over. He clapped his hands and said in a clear voice, "Okay, let's change. The student who was supporting the other student just now has to do this movement, and the student who was doing the movement just now can stand up and help your companion. Don't let him fall." Lan Xian's smiling face collapsed. She looked down at her chubby legs and muttered, "I don't know how to do it." She had a good teammate who liked to help others. When Shi heard this, she immediately said enthusiastically, "It's okay, Xian, I can teach you. I'll help you just like just now." However, it was difficult to make Lan Xian bend her waist. She trembled and stretched out her right leg, but she stood like this and began to raise her hand. Something didn't seem right. Shi looked at Lan Xian's straightened legs and blinked. She raised her head and whispered, "Xian, you didn't do the right thing. You have to do this." She even enthusiastically stood aside and demonstrated to Lan Xian. But I can't get it down. It's super painful." Lan Xian frowned and muttered. She scratched her head, feeling a little troubled. "Then what should we do?" Lon Xian was focused on slacking off. She rolled her eyes and came up with an idea. I'll do it this way. Shishi, it's your turn now. Shishi didn't think that much, she said in confusion. But the teacher hasn't said anything yet. It should be the teacher who asks for someone else to do it. But I'm so tired. Shishi, can you do it more? Lon Xian stood up and hugged Shishi's little hand while the teacher wasn't paying attention. But you haven't finished yet. Shishi didn't know how to refuse. She also wanted to help her best friend, but she subconsciously felt that it was a little inappropriate. In fact, there were many children who were as lazy as Lon Xian. Many of the children's partners weren't as serious as Shishi. Their partners didn't say anything when they did it crookedly. There were even some children who stood up again when Teacher Lu looked to the other side. Fortunately, Shishi didn't have to make the most difficult decision. Teacher Lu Dashin noticed the commotion. He came over and asked about the situation with concern. Shishi and Lon Xian were both frightened, especially Lon Xian. Her round little face was pale, and she thought that Teacher Lu would scold her. However, to Shishi and Lon Xian's surprise, Teacher Lu, who looked fierce on the outside, wasn't very strict with them. It doesn't matter. Follow me and do as much as you can. Try to stretch your muscles and bones as much as possible. Next time, try to do better than this time. Move your right leg forward a little. Very good. Bend it a little and lower it a little. Can't do it? Can't press it down? Then stop here. It's already very good. Continue to work hard next time. Teacher Lu Dashin's voice was rough, and it was a little scary like him. However, after Teacher Lu's demonstration and guidance, Lon Xian and Shishi gradually felt that Teacher Lu was not so scary anymore. After a series of warm-up exercises, Lon Xian was already tired and sweating profusely. Shishi was fine. She was in high spirits. Although there were some beads of sweat on the hair on her temples because of the hot weather, the little girl had just gotten into the mood and was ready to play. Very good. Teacher Lu Dashin applauded. In order to stimulate the children's enthusiasm, his voice was like beating gongs and drums. He was very excited but also a little rumbling as he said, after warming up, do you feel that your bodies are much lighter? Then let's play a little game now. Teacher Lu was indeed a little lacking in verbal expression. He learned the speaking habits of other teachers and interacted with the children stiffly. However, he forgot to give the children a chance to respond and continued talking. Shishi opened her eyes wide and curiously saw Teacher Lu pull out a large net bag from the side. There were many basketballs in it. Yes, basketballs. All of them were normal basketballs. They did not change the size of the basketballs just because they were in the first grade of primary school. When the boys in the class saw the basketballs, there was a commotion. Sure enough, ball games were still very attractive to boys. They had long been impatient with the previous warm-up exercises. Now when they saw the basketballs, their interest rose and their eyes began to shine. Shishi was not as excited as them, but she was very curious. Although she had seen these things, she had not played them in person. Who has played basketball before? You can raise your hand. Lu Dashin finally gave the children a chance to show off this time. He asked a boy who had played basketball to come up and demonstrate how to bounce the ball. Originally, according to the curriculum outline, he was going to take the children to learn about lining up, running, and other content first. However, this was the first class, and he also knew that these first-grade children were not so patient. If they learned those boring lessons as soon as they came up, he was afraid that they would soon rebel. Lu Dashin, who had taught 2 classes of freshmen, was considered experienced. He decided to balance work and play, and intersperse some teaching content appropriately. Most of the time, he would take them to play and stimulate their interest in sports activities. Yes, this is the game we are going to play today. I will teach you how to bounce the ball with both hands. When the class is about to end, we will see which child can bounce the ball the most at one time, okay? Lu Dashin bounced the basketball with one hand and tried to smile at the children. Perhaps if he smiled, it would make him look less fierce. However, at this moment, none of the children were interested in his smile. Their eyes were attracted by the bouncing brown sprite. Cece was also eager to give it a try. She wanted to play this basketball, and also wanted the teacher to praise her. For example, Teacher Lu said, "Wow, Shishi, you are so good at bouncing the ball. You are the best." The little girl was a little overjoyed when she thought about it. If she was praised by the PE teacher, she must go home and tell her father that she could bounce the ball. Even the PE teacher praised her. Chapter 840. It's fun to play basketball. It's not fun to play basketball. In the car home in the evening, Shishi and Lan Xian had a debate on this issue. Obviously, no one could convince the other. Shishi was keen on sports, but Lan Xian was afraid of these exhausting sports activities. The two girls chattered and shouted at each other, as if they were about to quarrel. "Wait a minute. Did you learn how to play basketball in the physical education class today? You're too good. You're only in the first grade of primary school, but you're already learning how to play basketball. Come on, Shishi, Xianair, tell me how many basketballs did you shoot today?" Yang Yi had to intervene and change the topic with a smile. "Only one basketball. I played with Xianair." Shishi didn't understand her father's question. She said innocently, "But Teacher Lu has a lot of basketballs." At this moment, Lan Xian also echoed, "Yes, there are so many basketballs. Teacher Lu has so many that I can't count them all." The little girl opened her hands and gestured. Yang Yi knew that they had misunderstood, but it didn't matter. He said with a smile, "Aren't you two playing a basketball? There are 60 children in your class. If you divide them by half, that's 30 basketballs. Then count how many are left on the ground, and whether the teacher has any basketballs in his hands. Add them all up, and you'll get the number of basketballs." He didn't know if Shishi and Lan Xian could understand. Yang Yi just wanted to teach them some calculation thinking. However, looking at the two little girls blinking behind him and thinking in distress, Yang Yi guessed that they hadn't understood yet. Cece was still trying her best to figure it out, but Lan Xian adhered to the principle of not thinking about things that she didn't understand. Soon, she threw the thought to the back of her mind, and then said smugly, "Uncle Yang, let me tell you. When we were shooting basketball, I even asked Cece to play for me, because I'm very tired." "Yet Xianair doesn't like to play." Shishi nodded. "Xianair, why don't you like to play?" Yang Yi asked. "Exercise is good for your health." "Because I'm tired. I don't want to play anymore." Lan Xian pouted and said, "The teacher didn't let me rest. I'm still tired." "Papa, I'm not tired at all. When I bounced the ball, the teacher praised me," Shishi enthusiastically said to her father, as if she was asking for credit. It seemed that the little girl wanted to help her little friend share the firepower. In fact, she just had a lot of stories that she wanted to tell her father, and couldn't help but steal the topic. "Really? How did the teacher praise you?" Yang Yi asked with a smile. "Teacher Lu said that I'm very good. I'm the best at bouncing the ball among the girls," Shishi said happily, but her tone suddenly became regretful. "But I'm not a boy, because Chun Yuxuan is better at bouncing the ball." Yang Yi understood what Shishi meant. She was saying that she couldn't compete with boys, but she was the best among the girls. "That's great. After all, it's your first day of learning this." Yang Yi comforted her. "Papa, at first, when I bounced the ball, I hit my nose. The ball flew up. Boom, my nose was hit." The little girl was still describing it vividly. Her little head was like a little chick pecking at rice. She suddenly nodded, and even made the sound of a collision. After she finished speaking, she couldn't help but laugh. "I was hit 3 times. Lan Xian shouted, as if being hit was a reward. "I was hit only once and I didn't get hit again," Shishi said. Yang Yi asked with concern, "Does your nose still hurt? And Xianair, you were hit so many times. Did you bleed?" In the rearview mirror, Shishi's lips were still red and her teeth were white. There was no problem at all. She shook her head and smiled sweetly. "It doesn't hurt. Hee papa, it's been a long time." Lan Xian waved her hand casually. "It doesn't hurt, but I don't like to play. I let Shishi play." After returning home, Shishi was still a little unsatisfied. She wanted to play basketball for her parents. "Do your homework first." Papa will buy you a basketball tomorrow. Yang rubbed the little girl's head and said with a smile, "We don't have one at home now." "Papa, you can take me with you to buy one. I want it now." Shishi was a little unhappy when she heard that she had to do her homework. She pulled her father's arm and acted like a spoiled child. "Don't you want to do your homework?" Murphy asked. The little girl pouted and didn't answer, but her expression had already revealed her inner thoughts. Papa received the homework text message from the teacher. "It's not much. There's only homework for math and language. There's no homework for English today. Now you can do your homework. You can finish it before dinner in the blink of an eye." Yang scratched his daughter's delicate little nose and said, "If you finish your homework before dinner, you can play all night and watch TV, right? But if you don't finish your homework, you won't be able to watch Big Head Fish and Small Head Shrimp when it airs. You have to finish your homework first." Murphy played the bad guy and said seriously, "I want to watch TV. I don't want to do my homework." She ground her slippers unhappily. She had to do her homework every day. Yang actually knew that she would be impatient, but he didn't expect that on the second day. She had already realized the conflict between homework and playing at home. "None of us want to do homework, but we have to do it, because you also want the teacher's praise, and you also want Papa to be happy for you, right?" Yang pulled Shishi to the sofa, and the two sat side by side and chatted. Shishi gently nodded her little head, but she was still a little sad. "Since it's necessary to do it, but we don't like it very much, what should we do?" Yang said. Shishi raised her little head and looked at her father with her big eyes in confusion. "Yes, what should we do? At this time, we have to try our best to choose a time that doesn't conflict with our other things to finish it. For example, during the time before dinner, you usually have nothing to do, and you can only watch TV after dinner, when we come back from a walk. At this time, if we finish our homework, then we can play to our heart's content, right?" Yang said. Shishi felt that her father's words were reasonable. Although she was still a little reluctant, she still nodded her little head. Similarly, when doing homework, there are many ways to save energy and speed up. As long as you're willing to use your brain, as long as you're focused enough when doing homework, you'll be able to finish it faster and play faster. Yang said, "You don't have to worry about this. Papa will slowly explore it with you. Papa will work hard with you, and strive to finish it in the shortest time, okay?" Shishi's words sounded easier to accept, and her father would also help her, which was very important. Her originally depressed expression now became a little happy. Then Papa, you have to help me." The little girl looked at her father with her eyes sparkling, and said expectantly, "Well, of course, Papa will help you, because a smart person will not only work hard, but also be flexible in facing difficulties. Papa hopes that you are also a smart person." Yang pressed Shishi's shoulder, and said in an encouraging tone, "I am a smart child." Shishi tilted her little head and shouted, as if she was declaring something. The little girl's positive attitude came back. Yang laughed. This was what he wanted to see. No matter what the results were, he hoped that Shishi would be the same as before, in the best state and with the most enthusiasm to study. Chapter 841. Yang didn't only educate his daughter endlessly. After educating her, he still had to coax her. "I don't want to sit here." Sisi, who had agreed to do her homework obediently, stood at the side, pointed at the coffee table and said with a pout, "The teacher said that our heads and shoulders must be straight. Our bodies must be straight. Our backs must be straight." Wow, she even recited the teacher's words, as if she was blaming her father. Obviously, although she accepted her father's words, she just figured out the general principle, but she was still unwilling to do her homework. There was a little resentment in her heart, and at this moment, she needed to vent it out. Okay, Dad will change the table for you right away. Upstairs, in your bedroom, there is a desk and chair that Dad bought for you to do your manual work, a very standard desk and chair for doing homework," Yang said with a smile, and then he swaggered up and moved the desk and chair down for Shishi. "Is it okay? I think this desk is very good." Yang pulled out the small chair, sat down in a very gentlemanly gesture of welcome, and said to Shishi with a smile. Shishi's little resentment came inexplicably and disappeared inexplicably. At this moment, she looked at her father's posture of invitation, and could not help but giggle. Her smiling eyes were like crescent moons, conveying her joy at this moment to her father. On Wednesday afternoon, Sisi, who had just finished a new day of classes, saw her father again. Yang Yi pretended to be calm and took Shishi and Lan Xian back to the car. When he sat in the driver's seat, his voice suddenly became very tempting. Shishi, look, what is this? Shishi and Lan Xian both looked forward, and immediately, Shishi's excited voice sounded in the car. Wow, wow. Papa, basketball, basketball. Dad didn't break his promise, right? Yang Yi said with a smile. Dad bought you a basketball. Yeah. In her baby seat, the little girl could not help but twist happily. She wished she could break free from the seat belt and run to the front to hug the ball. She even sweetly called out, Papa is super good. Not just basketball. Yang Yi pulled out a big bag from the passenger seat and rummaged through it. As he showed it to Shishi, he said with a smile, there are also table tennis rackets, badminton rackets, and badminton rackets. Dad guessed that you might need them in the future, so he bought soccer balls and volleyball. It was rare for Yang Yi to go to a sports store, and he almost moved the store back. Hee, my papa is the best. Shishi nodded with satisfaction, and her praise for her father was upgraded. After all, super couldn't be compared to the most. I want to play basketball with Xian Air, Shishi said excitedly to her father. I don't want to play basketball. You play. It's too tiring to play basketball. Lan Xian did not have much interest. She shook her head and said, But I'm in the same group as you. Shishi said in distress. Sisi didn't play basketball because she liked it, but because she enjoyed the comfortable feeling of playing outdoors. It was because she could laugh and play with other children, which made this little game very interesting. How boring it would be to play alone. But I don't want to play. Lan Xian maintained her last stubbornness. She pouted and shook her head. Shishi was a little disappointed. She wanted to invite Lan Xian to play with her after she had a basketball. Yang Yi did not let Shishi down. After returning home, he took the basketball and took Shishi to the yard. While the sky was still bright, he played basketball with her. Today we can eat a little later, exercise a little, then do homework and cook, okay? Yang Yi smiled, gently hit the basketball on the ground, and passed it to Shishi at a moderate speed. The little girl was very smart. She did not take the ball directly, for fear that her delicate little nose would be hit by the ball again. She nimbly dodged to the side, and then chuckled and chased after him. Shishi awkwardly hugged the basketball that was bigger than her head. Only then did she have time to answer. She also mischievously shouted, Papa, I want to cook, and then you help me do my homework, okay? Hee. You know how to cook? I don't believe it. Yang Yi deliberately shook his head disdainfully. Shishi thought that her father believed her. The little girl chased the basketball that she sent to her father, and embarrassedly stuck out her small tongue. Hee, Papa, I was joking. I don't know how to cook. The fun of shooting a basketball is not as good as passing the ball. Shooting a basketball is a solo. Passing the ball is the interaction between two people. Shishi was soon immersed in the game of passing the ball with her father. She did not have her father's ability to control the basketball with one hand. Every time the little girl threw the basketball, she had to raise it high. Even if she was born with divine strength, she had to use all her strength to throw it to her father. Yeah. After half an hour, the little girl threw the basketball in her hand again. She played until her face was red, her forehead was sweating, and her small mouth was panting. But she was having fun, as if she did not want to stop at all. Steamed Bun, who was having fun, did not want to stop either. This guy might have heard the noise and ran out of the house to participate in the game between the big master and the little master. It could not bite such a big basketball, but Steamed Bun was not discouraged at all. It chose to quickly catch up with the basketball, and even went around to the front of the basketball, and used its head to head the ball back. Generally, it was only when Shishi missed the ball that it had room to play. The big master threw it very well, and Steamed Bun would not snatch it from the little master. Most of the time, it just happily jumped around with the flying basketball. But even so, the little guy was still having fun. It was the first time in its life, 1.5 years old, that it played a ball. Steamed bun, quick steamed bun, you're great. It liked the little master's happy cries and praises after it caught the ball. This was one of the few expressions that steamed bun could understand. After Yang Yi explained the original intention of his Hua-Yi brothers' company in front of the media's evaluation of Yang Yi was not consistent. There were praises, and some media even praised Yang Yi to the heavens, saying that he was the most conscientious boss in the entertainment industry. There were also those who were skeptical. Many media outlets were questioning the credibility of Yang Yi and Qianli Chuanshu's words, because according to Qianli Chuanshu, Hua-Yi brothers still had a commission for them. However, there was no specific number for this ratio. Who knew if they were acting? There were even more voices of criticism. Yang Yi's statement to a certain extent reflected that most agencies in the entertainment industry had unreasonable terms in their contracts with newcomers. Although Yang Yi only expressed his attitude towards his friends, it undoubtedly touched the interests of other agencies. Their relationship with the media was complicated, so naturally many media outlets were willing to jump out to help them criticize Yang Yi. Some said that Yang Yi's thinking was too naive, and that a company without strict rules would not last long. Some said that Yang Yi underestimated the complexity of human nature. Yang Huan was still fine, but now the entire entertainment industry knew that Guozi and Qianli Chuanshu had no restrictions in their contracts with their agencies. These people would be poached by some large agencies sooner or later. Some also said that Yang Yi was just creating his perfect persona. The most considerate husband, the brother who took care of his sister the best, and the boss who treated his brothers the best. The entertainment industry was very complicated, and there were many disputes of interests. It was useless to just shout slogans, and it was useless to just run the company with benevolence. Hua-Yi brothers would definitely not be able to develop, and Yang Yi's perfect persona would collapse sooner or later. The media's criticism of Yang Yi could be described as harsh, but even though it seemed that a war was about to break out in the entertainment industry, Yang Yi disappeared without a trace. He did not respond to the doubts and criticisms of others, because he did not care at all. Yang Yi had already had a premonition about these counterattacks when he told the situation of the Hua-Yi brothers. Mo Xiaowan had also warned him, but he did not care, so he said it openly. In the overwhelming wave of condemnation, the protagonist seemed to be uninvolved. This made some of the fierce-looking media outlets feel as if a basin of cold water had been poured on their faces, and their enthusiasm could not be ignited. On this day in Shanghai, there was a new internet media studio called Urban Entertainment Reporter. A young man biting a pen suddenly had his eyes lit up, and ran excitedly to the chief editor's office. "Chief editor, I know what news about Yang Yi can attract the most attention." "Salted egg, what did you say?" The chief editor pushed up his glasses. Qian Dan clenched his fists and said excitedly, "We can write about Yang Yi's current net worth. Didn't he say that he didn't need the Hua-Yi brothers to earn money for him? This means that he must be very rich, but no one knows how much money he has. Didn't the previous reports always give people the impression that Yang Yi was a poor boy who married a rich singer? In just a few years he went from being poor to being the boss of a management company. This matter must be very inspirational, and people are eager to know how rich he is now." "You're right, this is a very selling news." The chief editor also felt that Qian Dan's idea was not bad. He patted the table and stood up excitedly. Hee. Qian Dan stood there and laughed proudly. This idea was a sudden idea, but it was indeed very explosive. Now that the chief editor had approved of him, how could he not be proud? Thinking about it, it seemed that a promotion, a raise, a general manager, a CEO, and a marriage with a rich and beautiful woman wasn't far away. However, Qian Dan, you have to check carefully how much money he has earned in the past few years. The chief editor did not disappoint Qian Dan. He patted Qian Dan's shoulder and encouraged him. "If this report is done well, there should be a lot of people reading it. When the time comes, our company's bonus will not be missed." Qian Dan nodded and said proudly, "Don't worry, chief editor, leave it to me. Chapter 842. Shishi gradually adapted to her identity and life as a primary school student. Yang Yi and Murphy finally had some free time and could continue their work. At present, their main job was to prepare for Murphy's new album when she returned at the end of November. On this day, in Yang Yi and Murphy's exclusive recording studio at Phoebe Studio, Yang Yi, Murphy and Ji Ningming sat in their chairs, forming a circle with Mo Xiaowan, who was leaning on the console. It wasn't that there was no place for Mo Xiaowan to sit, but this pretentious unmarried girl said that she wanted to lose weight, slim her butt, and refused to sit. I think that the new album for the return must have enough weight to form a certain market influence. Because Sister Faye hasn't released a new album for 2 years, this time it must be a hit. Mo Xiaowan clenched her fists and said valiantly, "This is definitely necessary. What we need to study is whether to add previously released singles in the new album," Ji Ningming said. In fact, not to mention the use of previous singles in the new album was also mixed with songs used in the past album. These small tricks were everywhere. The most common way was to take the old songs that were very popular in the past and match them with a few new songs to sell as a new album, called a Golden Song Special. Of course, what Ji Ningming said was another way to do it. After all, the songs that Yang Yi wrote for Murphy in the past were all released as singles. There was no lack of quality among these songs, and many of them were even songs that others dreamed of. If they weren't included in the album, Ji Ningming would feel that it was a waste. "Old Jean, we have already released songs, so there's no need to mix them into the new album." Yang Yi laughed. "Xiaowan is right. Since it's a return album, we have to do a better job and use all new songs to show our sincerity. But we have to write 12 new songs." Ji Ningming looked at Yang Yi with some worry. Although he didn't say what he was going to say next, his eyes revealed his thoughts. "Just 2 months. Can you do it?" At this moment, Mo Xiaowan hesitated and said, "Sister Faye, brother-in-law, actually, we don't have to let brother-in-law finish writing so many songs. According to the practice of many management companies, we can ask other songwriters for songs." Murphy looked at Mo Xiaowan in surprise. She was already used to singing songs written by Yang Yi, so she couldn't quite wrap her head around it. "You're asking for a song from someone else?" "Yes, I have my reasons for making this suggestion," Mo Xiaowan said seriously. Yang Yi asked curiously, "Tell me about it." As early as a month ago, Xiao AI released a survey on our studio's official microbroadcast. It asked the fans which types of songs Sister Faye sang were more popular. This survey is actually a small interactive activity. They hope to mobilize the enthusiasm of fans and promote the sales of songs through this award-winning survey. Mo Xiaowan also explained a lot. "I know about this activity. You also asked me to write postcards to a few lucky fans who won." Murphy smiled. "What's the result of the survey?" Yang Yi also had a strong interest in Mo Xiaowan's story. "You definitely can't guess the result. Fans are more interested in sad songs like Listen to the Sea and Come Across the Sea to See You sung by Sister Faye. More than 50% of fans voted for this option. The rest of the fans like to listen to sweet love songs. There are also some who want to listen to Chinese, Cantonese, military songs and other types of songs. The proportion of the latter is very small," Mo Xiaowan said. Yang Yi froze for a moment. He touched his chin thoughtfully. "In addition, we found that a large number of fans suggested to us that it would be a bit boring to listen to too many sweet love songs. They hope that Sister Faye can sing some other types of songs," Mo Xiaowan said. When Love of a Lifetime was released, many musicians, such as teacher Li Shijian, made similar comments. Ji Ningming still had an impression of Li Shijian's music reviews. When he heard this, he could not help but nod and say, "Indeed, you should try some other types of songs. Otherwise, it's easy to limit your singing style to a small range." Just like Feng Huiwen of China's top voice, she used to be called the Queen of Sweet Songs. Everyone's impression of her was only sweet songs. In fact, she also sang other songs, but they were not popular. Yang Yi understood. He said with a smile, "I know. What you mean is that Murphy sang too many love songs I wrote about the sweetness between us. I'm worried that fans will categorize Murphy as a queen of sweet songs." "But Xiaowan, You're underestimating me too much. Yang Yi smiled and pointed at Emo Shaowan. He said, I don't only know how to write this type of song. I can also write other types of songs. If you want to be sad, you can also write about it. Otherwise, why would Listen to the Sea be born? But your experiences are different now. You're living a happy life now. There's no sadness like before. Didn't your songs change their style and become the type of songs that show affection every day? Emo Shaowan said with some resentment towards the end. Yang Yi shook his head and said with a smile, haven't you heard of a poem called, in order to write a new poem, one has to express one's sorrow? Emo Shaowan shook her head in confusion. Murphy had not heard of it either. Ji Ningming, who had a higher reading level, could not help but ask, what poem is that? I've never heard of it either. Yang Yi then remembered that there was no mission for old Xian in this world. He smiled and waved his hand saying, well, that's not important. What I mean is that the creation of music does not necessarily require the same experience to create a song with a certain emotion. It's just like writing a novel. Sometimes, their creation also requires imagination. With some imagination, you can immerse yourself in a certain simulated emotion. Then this type of song can be written. Murphy pulled Yang Yi's hand. She did not want Yang Yi to torture her too much. She said, actually, I think it doesn't matter what type of song you sing. And I think that singing a love song that belongs to us will make me very happy. But I know that you actually like to sing sad love songs. Last time, when I sang Love of a Lifetime, you were immersed in it. Other songs are not so attractive. Yang Yi pressed Murphy's shoulders with both hands, not letting her deny it. He said softly, don't worry, writing a few songs is not a big problem for me. You can write sad love songs? Then you should have said so earlier. We don't need to find people to write songs for us anymore. Emo Shaowan said. Not only can I write, but what I write may not necessarily be worse than Listen to the Sea. In front of his own people, Yang Yi boasted confidently. Just wait and see. Chapter 843. Of course, before making the new album, Yang Yi not only wanted to know the suggestions of Emo Shaowan and Ji Ningming, but also wanted to know the preferences of his fans. He also needed to consider Murphy's opinion. After Yang Yi asked, Murphy pondered for a while and said, what I want to sing the most? In fact, I don't care much about the type of songs. Relatively speaking, I prefer to sing some challenging songs that are not so easy to sing well, such as Listen to the Sea and Love of a Lifetime. I prefer these songs that have higher requirements for singing. That means it's more difficult to sing. I've tried to sing the song Love of a Lifetime, but I can't sing it like Yang Yi. Ji Ningming couldn't help shaking his head and sighing. I really don't understand how you can sing it. If you can change the shape of your voice in a special way, you can also sing a variety of different songs. Of course, Yang Yi didn't say that. He smiled and said to Ji Ningming, every song has thousands of ways to interpret it. You don't have to learn my singing. You can sing it well yourself. The problem is that I don't sing well myself. I like to listen to your version. Sorry, Murphy, I'm not targeting you. Ji Ningming felt that something was wrong halfway through his words and quickly changed it. Murphy couldn't help but laugh. She waved her hand, indicating that she didn't care. You men's views are still different from ours. Xiao Ai and I like the version sung by Sister Fei. Emo Shaowan joined in. Yang Yi was still thinking about what Murphy said when he suddenly remembered a song that was recognized as difficult to cover in his previous life. If it were another song, he wouldn't have taken it out immediately, but this song was really interesting. Whether it was the lyrics or the singing, they were all very special. So he took the cardboard from the table next to him, took out a pen and wrote on it. Several people saw the movement and thought that Yang Yi was inspired. They all stopped talking and didn't dare to interrupt Yang Yi's thoughts. Only Murphy could go over and read what Yang Yi had written. Why is it that the stronger the wind, the more my heart flutters, like a speck of dust dancing freely in the wind? Murphy couldn't help but widen her eyes and open her mouth in surprise after reading these few sentences. This lyric is very unique. She didn't know why, but just by looking at it, She felt a kind of magical attraction. Murphy couldn't help but like these lyrics. Perhaps the feelings of freedom expressed in these lyrics were very special? Murphy was not a person who yearned for freedom. On the contrary, she did not like her life to change too much. If she was like other female celebrities who yearned for freedom and rock and roll, Yang would probably have sung Miss Dong. But when she was singing, Mo Fei liked the feeling of freedom expressed in the lyrics of the song. Just like Listen to the Sea. The voice was raised high and then dropped down. This feeling of freedom in playing with the rhythm was very fascinating. So when she read these lyrics, it was as if she had become a speck of dust, being thrown around in the wind. The rhythm of the music here should also be endlessly high and floating. Murphy was lost in thought. After writing the lyrics, Yang Yi hung it on the whiteboard in the recording studio. Yang Yi, is this an improvised song? Jin Yingming couldn't hold it in anymore. He didn't wear glasses today, so he excitedly walked up to the whiteboard and looked at it. This song was inspired before, but I didn't finish it because it's a bit difficult. Murphy can sing it, but the audience may not be able to sing it. It has a wide range. The main song is between G3 and G4, but the chorus is raised by a whole octave between G4 and G5. It can be considered as one of my experimental products. Yang Yi chuckled and said casually, "Today Murphy mentioned it, so I took it out for you to see." Jin Yingming touched his chin and said, "I don't know how well it's sung, but your lyrics are very interesting. Look at the end of each line. It doesn't rhyme completely, or it basically doesn't rhyme at all. But from the content of the lyrics, the imagery and mood are very strong, and it has a special sense of déjà vu." Mo Xiaowan couldn't wait. She looked at it from the side and found a chance to interrupt. "I don't think there's a need to say so much. Let's listen to brother-in-law sing it first. As for how the song is like, we'll have a rough impression after listening to it once. This song, if sung by a male voice, will be a bit worse, but I can hum it once for you to listen to and use it as a reference." Yang Yi didn't refuse. After thinking for a while, he began to hum. "Keep going in the direction where the wind blows, go. Blow, blow, blow my pride and indulgence." He had learned the singing style of Sha Baoyang in his previous life. The main part of the song was calm and had a desire for freedom, while the chorus was high and had a trace of struggle. It had to be said that for a male voice to sing this song at Sha Baoyang's level, it was already pretty good. Due to the limitations of his gender, Yang Yi was destined to be unable to imitate the original song. In his previous life, the reason why Su Yuniying's singing was described as ear-scratching was not only because of her vibrato, but also because of her unique singing style that couldn't be separated from her own voice. This was something that Yang Yi couldn't imitate. Murphy might be able to do it, because her voice was indeed very good. As a woman, she could imitate many different female voices, such as ethereal, hoarse or unruly. Yang Yi's imitation was much worse. Of course, what was even more fascinating was Su Yuniying's casual and improvisational style in the original song. But even if Yang Yi couldn't imitate the original song, his unaccompanied humming was enough to make Murphy, Jin Yingming, and the rest intoxicated. There's actually such a song. After Yang Yi finished singing, Jin Yingming couldn't help sighing. "When I saw the lyrics that you wrote, I already felt that it wasn't ordinary. Now that I've listened to it, it's even more special." "How special is it?" Mo Xiaowan curiously asked. She felt that it was pretty good, but she couldn't tell what was so special about it. Jin Yingming smiled, pointed to his head, and said, "It's special because I thought about it for a long time just now, but I couldn't find a template that matches it. In Chinese music, there is no song that is similar to its singing style. That's why it's special. Even Love to Work Hard to Win wasn't that special, because although the tune of Love to Work Hard to Win was also very ear-catching, it could still be classified as an old song. Many songs that circulated in Nanyang had similar rhythms to it. But Wild Child really didn't have a corresponding template. Not to mention this world, even in Yang Yi's previous life, it was the most special. Even after it was released, no one could imitate the same style of song. Yang Yi still hoped that Murphy could sing the original song, or even surpass it. So he said to Murphy, who still wanted to hear more, "When singing this song, Don't sing it like me. You have to imagine that you're really a leaf that's being blown by the wind. First, break all the melodies, mess it up, and then find your unique rhythm. I want to try. Murphy was a little itchy. She looked at the recording room in the recording studio and said eagerly. She definitely couldn't sing this song well in a day or two. During the time when Yang-yi was writing songs for her new album, Murphy had her new toy. You're tuning into the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.